Am I the asshole for getting a co-worker fired after she repeatedly mocked me for my breast implants, unaware that I got them due to cancerous cells? Original post. I'm 28 and when I was 24 mom died of breast cancer, after both of my nanas also died of it. I got some tests done and found that I did have some potentially cancerous cells in my breast tissue, and the doctor said I could either wait and see if they did turn harmful or I could get ahead of it and get a double mastectomy. I got a double mastectomy. I was warned about scarring but not the extent of it and wound up with scars 1 inch long and half an inch wide on my chest, and I hated the way it looked. It got to the stage where it was having a serious impact on my mental health. I felt sick seeing myself, and I wouldn't leave my flat. I went to a therapist, who did some CBT with me before she suggested seeing a plastic surgeon about scar reduction. The plastic surgeon said the scars could be hidden with implants. I was naturally big, an F-cup, before the mastectomy, so I opted to go with slightly smaller but still fairly large DD-sized implants. They hid the scars pretty well and I'm happy with them. My mental health improved and I felt comfortable in my own skin again. A few months ago I was at work having lunch with this friend of mine and we were planning a holiday. She made a joke about my boobs exploding on the plane. The friend knew me before the surgery and I knew she wasn't being mean, so I laughed. A coworker, Jill, overheard and, not knowing about the cancer thing, told everyone that I'd had a boob job. She hated me from then on out, and she made a bunch of jokes to other coworkers, calling me fake in 2 ways, and more plastic than Barbie, all when I was in earshot. I've asked her to stop more than once. We were all having lunch today. Me, Jill, and a few others. And a coworker, Bob, was talking about his daughter wanting to marry this guy who has nothing going for him. And I said that Bob was being a little shallow. Jill replied, "Well, you'd know all about being shallow," gesturing at my chest. I'd had enough and said, "Do you know why I have these? A few years ago the doctors found potentially cancerous cells in my breast tissue. I was advised to get a double mastectomy by a doctor and was left with huge ugly scars on my chest. I went to see a therapist and cosmetic surgeon, who advised me to get implants to hide the scars, and I did just so I could look at myself in the mirror without crying. So maybe next time you want to judge someone for having cosmetic surgery, you should ask them why they had it first." And feeling like that was a mic drop moment, I picked up my food and left. Someone from the lunchroom came to talk to me, saying Jill was just joking. I was being oversensitive and a bitch about it when Jill didn't know about the cancerous cells. I replied that maybe Jill shouldn't have been a bitch to begin with. It's the end of the day now and half the office seems to side with Jill and the other half with me. Relevant comments. Comment 1. NTA: Jill shouldn't be commenting on her coworkers' bodies. This could easily be seen as sexual harassment. Edit. OP, please mention to HR that you repeatedly asked Jill to stop commenting on your body and she refused. I don't see this ending well for Jill since she continuously commented on your body and pushed you to the point of feeling uncomfortable in the workplace. OP, I don't have any record of it. I only ever spoke to her about stopping in private. The 4 times I asked were in the lift, twice, the stairwell and the women's bathroom, all places without cameras, so the only person who can confirm I asked her is Jill herself. I can prove she's been making comments about my body by asking any coworkers she spoke to, but can't prove I asked her to stop. Edit. HR want to see me about creating a hostile work environment, so looks like someone reported either me or Jill or both. Update. HR wants to see me tomorrow, so I'll update after work. If they're dealing with it quickly, though, it can't be good. Update 2. Some coworkers have offered to write me letters of support for HR tomorrow, basically saying that they've seen Jill harass me completely with rough dates and times. Relevant comments. Who filed the HR complaint? Oop. Wouldn't be surprised if it turned out Jill was the one who reported me. She has a friend in HR. Would it count as sexual harassment? Commenter. She has a friend in HR. If the note is from that friend, or the meeting is with that friend, I would try to go over her head as fast as possible. Perhaps initiating a counterclaim, not sure if that is the right term. You may want to ask over at /r/legal advice or r/legal advice UK if you are in the UK as someone else guessed. OOP? I am in the UK. The email is from Jill's friend, so it looks like the friend will be overseeing the complaint, but there's something in my contract that basically says if HR ever gets involved I have the right to an unbiased overseer and can request a different one if I can prove the current one is biased. So if it is this woman and I can show she and Jill are friends, then I might be able to fix it or go above her head. Editor's note: edited out a rehash of the AITA post. For the rest of the day I had about 1/3 of my office come up to me and offer support, and the rest tell me that Jill was just joking around and I was being a bitch. I replied that Jill was being a bitch long before I was. I then got an email from HR saying they wanted to talk to me the following day, And when I called for clarification, they mentioned a hostile work environment. Note, this is apparently an American term and holds little weight in England, but it's what was said over the phone. I knew the person who signed off the email and I'd spoken to. Her name was Debbie, and she was Jill's friend in HR, so I was fairly confident on who had reported me. I realized that if this was already being sent to HR, I needed as much ammunition as possible, so I went about collecting my information. As Debbie had dealt with me so far, it was safe to assume she would be the person reviewing the complaint with me, and if that was true, I was fucked. However, I vaguely remembered a section on complaints that was in my contract when I first signed with the company. I flicked through the contract and there was a part in complaints section that said I was contractually allowed to request a change of reviewer if I felt my allocated reviewer was biased. It was called an impartial overseer. I photocopied the page and highlighted that part. Then I messaged the people who had offered their support over Facebook, and said basically, HR have asked to see me. Do any of you remember Jill insulting me to your face, and are you willing to write and sign something saying what you heard and when? Not everyone was willing to help, as Jill is somewhat feared in the office due to her befriending HR and management, but about 20 people were willing to help me. I guessed roughly when I'd asked Jill to stop previously. The 4 asks over the last few months, some timings were easy to guess as they'd happened on my break or when I'd first arrived at work, and I wrote them all down, along with a rough time of when the lunchroom confrontation happened and a list of names of who was there for the lunchroom confrontation. I got to work slightly early the next morning. I went round everyone who had messaged me, and most of them managed to give me a printed and signed letter. Some didn't manage to write one, but NBD. This isn't exact words as there's 16 letters to sum up here, but the gist was, my name is their name. I work with Jill last name and OP. On date at time, approx, I spoke with Jill last name, during which she referred to OP as quoted insult. I felt this was inappropriate as it directly related to OP's appearance, and am willing to go on record further to establish that Jill last name has been discussing OP in the workplace in the same manner for 3 months now, causing me discomfort and creating what I feel is a hostile work environment. Signed their name, I wound up with about 16 letters, all from different people, and one of them was in the lunchroom for my conversation with Jill. Some even had bullet-pointed lists of everything Jill had said to them about me or other people. As it turns out, Jill has issues with a lot of people's appearances. She apparently made comments about one coworker's weight, and something anti-Semitic about a different coworker's nose, all of which were put in these letters. There are about 45 people in the office, so while 16 wasn't a majority, it's still a decent amount. The letters weren't hugely long, most were only a paragraph, but they had all the necessary information. I was asked to come to HR at 10 a.m. I took the letters from coworkers, the photocopy of the page in my contract, and my dates and times in a little folder with me. I got there and Debbie was the one overseeing the interview. She got up from her desk, ready to lead me into another room. I immediately turned to the other HR worker that was currently there and said, "So is my meeting with you then?" Debbie said, "No, you're with me." I replied that this wouldn't sit well with me, as my contract states I have a right to an impartial overseer. And as I said this, I took the contract page out of my folder. Debbie read it. I wouldn't let her take the paper when there was a shredder so close by, and said she could be impartial. I replied that I really didn't mean to be a pain, but I had it on good authority that the person on the other end of this complaint is her friend, and my contract does say I'm allowed an impartial overseer. Debbie stomped off to get supervisor. Supervisor asks how I know she can't be impartial, and I tell him that I have it on good authority that Jill, who is on the other end of this complaint, is a close friend of Debbie. He asked Debbie if this was true, to which she only replied, "I can be impartial." Supervisor took a deep breath, asked the other HR rep to come with him, and the 4 of us all went to review the complaint. I thanked them for being so accommodating. I was worried I'd annoyed them. Debbie took out the complaint and all 3 of them went through it with me. Debbie looked homicidal the whole time the interview was happening, as she had clearly anticipated firing me, or at least recommending me being fired. The interview went something like this. It took over half an hour and they kept asking me the same questions but phrased different ways, so this is a really drastically condensed version. Q. You said outside that you think Jill last name reported you. Why is this? A. Jill has had an issue with me for about 3 months now. Q. Why didn't you come to us when you realized Jill had an issue? A. I had no issue with her. Q. What issue does Jill have with you? A. 4 years ago a specialist identified potentially cancerous cells in my breast tissue. I had surgery to remove my breast tissue, thereby removing the cells and the risk. After the surgery I was left with large scars on my chest. I went to a therapist for low self-esteem and depression. The therapist suggested a plastic surgeon who suggested breast implants to cover my scars. All of this is in my medical history, which you have a copy of in my file and my full permission to review. Jill found out about my breast implants but didn't know about the cancer. Jill had a problem with my breast implants and decided to communicate this problem to our coworkers. Q. Why do you feel this is true? A. Here's 16 signed statements all from different coworkers, all testifying that Jill told the entire office I'd had breast implants on the day she found out and has since made comments about these implants frequently. They have quotes of what Jill said to them about it and rough dates and times. Q. Rough dates and times? A. No one knew this would be escalated to such an extent, so no one really took notes as and when it happened. Q. What event or events do you think directly led to this complaint of harassment? A. For me, harassment began when Jill told everyone about my breast implants without my consent, but as to the complaint placed against me, it would probably be what happened at about time yesterday in the lunchroom. Jill made a comment about me being shallow while gesturing to my breasts, and I replied by giving her an abridged version of my relevant medical history and ending with a comment about the importance of getting the full story. There are cameras in the lunchroom, so I'm sure you'll be able to find that conversation. I'll admit I could have handled the situation better, but after 3 months I felt I had to put my foot down. Here's a list of names of people who were also present. There were 6 people at the table, including myself and Jill. One of these people is also in those letters and has written their account of the conversation and signed it. Q. Had you had a conversation with Jill prior to this regarding her comments about you? A. Several, spaced out over the last 3 months. Each time I communicated to her that I felt uncomfortable and upset with these comments she was making and would appreciate it if she were to stop. Q. To your knowledge, was Jill made aware of your former cancer at any point in this time? A. Number. It wasn't mentioned in the conversation with my friend she overheard, and I didn't tell her because frankly it's none of her business, and I did not feel the need to detail my medical history to a coworker in order to avoid further sexual harassment. Supervisor stands up and says, "Well, I think we're done here." He shakes my hand and sends me back to my desk saying that I'd hear from them after they reviewed the evidence, letters, CCTV, medical history and anything they had already, and made a decision on the case. I got back to my desk, pulled up my CV, and prepared to start the job search again. About an hour goes by, then the person who wrote the letter and was there for the lunchroom conversation gets called for a meeting with HR. They come back 10-ish minutes later. The other people who were also there for the lunchroom conversation get called one by one, except Jill. All of them are gone for about 10 minutes, then come back, find a coworker, and say that HR wants to see them. Then the people who wrote letters but weren't there yesterday are also called one by one and are each gone for about 10 minutes each, some longer, some shorter. By about 3:30 it looks like everyone who wrote a letter or was there in the lunchroom has been interviewed. Then, finally, Jill gets called in. She's gone for about 30 minutes and comes back fuming. She glares at me while I work, but I ignore her. 4:30ish, Jill gets called into HR again. 5 p.m. rolls around, everyone is either leaving or getting ready to leave, when Jill storms back into the office. She glares at me the whole time she packs up her desk. She then starts telling anyone who will listen that I got her fired before shoving her way onto the lift. An email comes in from HR. My case is closed. TLDR. Coworker harassed me over having implants, which I only got because I had cancerous cells. I called her out, she reported me to HR for calling her out. I got a bunch of people to write statements of all the times she harassed me and she got fired instead. Also, I've been told that isn't what a reverse Uno is, but I can't change it. Eat it. Just want to add that regardless of my reasons for getting implants, I still should not have been harassed over them. It just happened to be relevant here because it made Jill look like a real dick, which is probably why she reported me. My girlfriend dumped me twice, the second time for another guy. Now she regrets it, but I won't take her back. Original post, January 27, 2025, I, 34 million, am struggling with whether I'm in the wrong for refusing to talk to my ex, Sarah, 29F, not her real name. There's a lot of history here, and I'll do my best to explain everything clearly. In mid-2022, I met Sarah at work, and we hit it off immediately. I fell for her quickly, and it didn't take long before we started dating. However, early in our relationship, Sarah broke up with me over something minor. To make matters worse, she made a scene in front of everyone at work. I was devastated but didn't want to leave my job at first. Eventually, I realized I still had feelings for her, and seeing her every day became too painful. That's when I decided to quit and find a new job. We lived close to each other, so we bumped into each other frequently over the next few months. We started talking again, but even though I still had feelings for her, I couldn't bring myself to consider getting back together. What she had done hurt me deeply. After a couple of months, She told me she regretted breaking up with me over something so minor. She admitted that doing it in front of everyone was wrong and that she had been thinking about it ever since. She seemed genuinely remorseful, and I could see she meant it. Feeling that her apology was sincere, I asked if she wanted to give our relationship another try. She agreed, and by early 2023, we were officially back together. 1 year later, things were going great. We talked about marriage and building a future together, which made me feel ready to take the next step. I decided to surprise her with a proposal and started working extra hours to save for a house, so we could marry not long after. I didn't tell her why I was working so much because I wanted it to be a complete surprise. Then, out of nowhere, she asked for a break. I was blindsided, and when I asked why, she refused to explain. Around the same time, I noticed she had been talking non-stop about a new guy at her workplace. But suddenly, she stopped mentioning him altogether, which made me suspicious. Confused and hurt, I reached out to one of my close friends, Emily, not her real name, who, along with her boyfriend, still worked at the same place as Sarah. I vented to Emily about what was going on and asked if she knew anything. She said she didn't because she worked in a different department, but she promised to ask around. A few days later, Emily got back to me. She told me that Sarah had been feeling like I was distant lately, especially with me working extra hours and not going out much. Emily said some of Sarah's colleagues had been encouraging her to take a break, claiming I wasn't treating her well and wasn't as invested in the relationship. On top of that, they were trying to match her up with the new guy at work, saying they'd make a better pair. I told Emily about my plans to propose and buy a house for Sarah and me. That was the reason I'd been working so much. I wanted to surprise her with something big. After about 2 weeks, Sarah called me and asked to meet up. I agreed but told her up front that I needed an explanation for why she wanted a break before we could discuss anything else. She brought up how distant I had seemed, saying it made her feel like I wasn't as invested in the relationship anymore. I told her that if she had just talked to me about it, she would have known there was a reason for my behavior, but now, it didn't matter anymore. Then she mentioned the new guy at her workplace. I said his name before she could, and she looked surprised, asking how I knew. I told her I wasn't an idiot. I'd noticed how she suddenly stopped talking about him after bringing him up all the time. She swore that she had never cheated on me. I replied that looking for someone better at the first sign of trouble could be considered cheating by some. At that point, I told her I didn't want to hear whatever else she had to say. Whether or not she wanted to get back together didn't matter. I was breaking up with her regardless. The breakup deeply hurt me. I couldn't bear staying in the same place, so I asked my company for a transfer and used the money I'd saved for the proposal to start over in a new city. While talking to Emily, the friend I had vented to before, she apologized to me. She admitted that she had slipped up and told Sarah about my plans to propose and buy a house. Emily said Sarah broke down crying after hearing that. I appreciated Emily's honesty, but it didn't change what had happened. By mid-December last year, I returned to my hometown to spend Christmas and New Year's with my family. Some friends wanted to organize a party to get everyone together, since many of us, myself included, had moved away and were only visiting for the holidays. Sarah was invited too. We barely interacted that night, just a quick hi in passing. At one point, I glanced at her and saw her smiling while chatting with a group of women. That smile brought back so many memories. I realized that seeing her smile still made me feel the same way I did the first time I saw it. I thought to myself, how screwed up am I that I still feel this way? Despite those lingering feelings, I was still sad and deeply hurt by how things had ended. Looking back, I also started to blame myself. I should have paid more attention to how she was feeling. I could have told her about the extra work and why I was doing it. Maybe things would have turned out differently. Later that evening, one of my friends mentioned that Sarah's relationship with the guy from her work had only lasted a couple of months. After the holidays, I planned to return to the city where I now lived. My vacation ended on January 6th, so I decided to leave on Friday. That way, I'd have Saturday to sort everything out at home and prepare for the week ahead, with Sunday to relax before going back to work. Before I left, one of my friends from back home called me. He said he had a favor to ask on behalf of someone else and warned me that I wouldn't like it. I could already feel my stomach sinking. Then he told me it was Sarah. She was moving to the same city where I lived to work at her relative's company, and she needed a ride. He asked if I could take her. I didn't even think about it before I said no. The idea of being stuck in a car with her for hours was too much to bear. It would have been painfully awkward, just like the party, and I wasn't ready to put myself through that. He told me that Sarah and I needed to talk, but I wasn't having any of it. I went back home, and last week, I went for a run and stopped to rest a little in a park when I heard a familiar voice say, "Hi." It was Sarah. She tried to start a conversation by asking how I was and mentioning that we didn't get a chance to talk at the party, but I cut her off, saying I didn't want to talk to her. She told me not to be like that we needed to have a conversation, but I said no. She asked how I could still resent her after almost a year and after everything we'd been through, but I told her it wasn't resentment. I was very honest. I told her that thinking about her, talking about her, or even seeing her still hurts a lot, and that's why I couldn't talk to her. She said that was exactly why we needed to talk. I didn't see the point, I just walked away. Since then, Sarah's tried to approach me twice more, and I've shut her down both times. Some of my friends think I'm being too harsh and that I should talk to her for closure. Others say it's not okay to torture her over what happened forever. But that's not what this is about. I don't have any resentment or negative feelings toward her anymore. I even recognize now that I share some of the blame. But it still hurts. I can't talk to her because it's like reopening an old wound that never fully healed. So, AITA for refusing to talk to her. TLDR. My ex, Sarah, broke off our relationship almost a year ago, and I've since moved on as best I can. Recently, she's been trying to talk to me, but I told her I can't because it still hurts too much. Some friends think I'm being too harsh, but I don't resent her, I just don't want to reopen old wounds. AITA for refusing to talk to her. Additional information from OOP after reading comments. OP, thank you all for your advices. I just want to explain better one thing. My friends are not calling me or messaging me saying that I should talk to her. That's just the opinion of some of them when the subject was brought up. AITA has no consensus bot. OOP was NTA relevant comments. Commenter 1. I don't think you're an AH, but I do think you resent her more than you are willing to admit and haven't actually worked through it internally yet. OOP. You might be right. Sometimes I think I'm totally over it, but then I realize it still haunts me. Commenter 2. Some people might say you need closure, but it seems like you've already processed a lot of the situation, and talking to her could just bring up more pain. You don't owe her anything, especially when it's affecting your well-being. You've already made it clear how you feel, and you're setting boundaries, which is important for healing. OP. That's what I think, but I don't know, sometimes I'm not sure. Commenter 3. Moving to your city, wanting a ride there where you're trapped in the car with her for hours, ignoring your rejections and being persistent? Those are not the actions of someone who wants closure to move on. That's someone trying to wiggle their way back into your good graces. Oop. Good point. Commenter 4. Once was a mistake, twice was a lesson, and a third time's you being stupid. That's like watching the same movie but expecting a different ending. Don't do it to yourself. Oop. There won't be a third time. I was already sure about not going back to her, and you guys' comments are helping me make up my mind about not talking to her. Update. February 2nd, 2025, 6 days later. Hey everyone, I wanted to give an update and thank you all for your input. I took the time to read through every comment, and while I didn't respond to all of them, it was only because I didn't have anything to add. I'm truly grateful for everyone who shared their thoughts. It has been incredibly helpful. After reading everything and thinking it through, I've decided to stick to my decision not to talk to Sarah. Something I forgot to mention in my original post, though I did tell a few commenters, is that I blocked her everywhere after we broke up the second time. Over the last few days, it seems like her persistence has started to backfire. Some of our mutual friends, including the ones who initially told me I should talk to her, have become frustrated with her constant attempts to contact me. Apparently, they've started turning on her because of it. 3 days ago, Emily, the friend I vented to back then, made a post on social media about stalkers. She didn't name Sarah, but a lot of people picked up on what she meant. I've also seen several comments on my original post suggesting that Sarah might have been stalking me. Her job in the same city and her coincidental appearance at the park all line up with that theory. For what it's worth, I know her uncle owns a company here, so maybe that is really why she moved. But honestly, it's not my problem and I'm not gonna look into it. Things have been quieter. Friends have dropped the subject, and Sarah hasn't tried to reach out again. That is, until yesterday. I watched the UFC event with some coworkers. When it ended, I was heading to my car when my phone rang. It was one of our mutual friends calling. She said she had been talking to Sarah and asked if she could pass along a message. I sighed but told her to make it quick. The message was simple. Sarah said she understands why I don't want to talk to her. She promised she wouldn't try to reach out again but added that she still thinks we need to talk. She said the door is open if I ever want to. I told my friend I didn't have a message to pass back and asked her not to bring up Sarah again in our conversations. If what Sarah said is true, it's a relief, but I'm not holding my breath. I wouldn't be surprised if she tries something else. Maybe she thinks giving me space will make me go to her, but it won't. That chapter of my life is closed. Right now, I just want to focus on myself. I probably won't be dating anyone anytime soon. If there is one thing I've learned, it's that I need to get to know people better before jumping into a relationship. I've also been thinking about how loosely I use the word friend. That is another part of my life I need to rethink. Some of the people I have called friends have proven they don't have my best interests at heart. A few people suggested therapy in the comments, and I'll admit, it is something I've been considering. For now, I'm giving myself time to heal on my own, but if I still don't feel right after a while, I will look into it. Thanks again to everyone who took the time to comment. Your advice has been a huge help in sorting all this out. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, good for you for sticking to your boundaries. It sounds like you're taking positive steps for yourself. Oopie. Yes, just moving forward instead of thinking about the past. Commenter 2, it sounds like you are doing well and moving on. Keep focusing on yourself and enjoying what you have. If you feel you need counseling, do it when you are ready. Good luck, OOP. I think now people around me understand my situation and what I truly need. That will help a lot. Commenter 3, this is exactly why monkey branching is a terrible dating practice. It's cheating with extra steps, that's why she keeps pushing. She knows what she did, just like she knows what she lost. Yet, ironically, she's too naive to understand that even if y'all got back together, you don't look at her the same. That's totally understandable. Oop. You're right, it would not be the same. Commenter 4. Good for you with holding to your boundaries. The moment she wasn't getting the amount of attention she wanted, she sought out a coworker to monkey branch to. It was cheating. She wasn't remorseful as she began a relationship with that guy. All she wants now is to act like she didn't cheat on you and rekindle your relationship. She's already proven that she will cheat with whoever shows her attention. That's not someone to be in a relationship with. Have you not dated since the breakup? Personally, that helped me get over my ex-wife who cheated. It's been a year. There's someone special out there for you. Not every woman is like your ex. Good luck. OP. I've dated other women since the breakup, just nothing serious. My family and I were excluded from our longtime friend's annual trip because my son is autistic. What should I do? Original post, 5 years ago, my childhood best friend, 44/male, invited me, my wife, 41/female, and our son on a week-long trip to California with his family and 3 of his college work friends, 42 to 45/male, and their families. I'd met them before and we all got on well enough, so I agreed to it. They knew that my son was autistic before they invited us and were fine with it apparently. The first year we went, my son had a really hard time adjusting but got better as time went on, although he did have a few meltdowns, but everyone acted like it was fine and that they understood and continued to invite us on the trip, and things usually went like that. Earlier this week, my friends said that they wanted to discuss the trip, and I too wanted to discuss the trip because of some concerns I had, mainly one of my friend's teenage daughters who was extremely rude to my son, so I agreed, and when I got there, things were really awkward. No one really said anything, and finally one of the guys just said that they and their families had decided that it would probably be best if we, my family, didn't go on the trip this year. I was completely blindsided and of course asked why, and none of them would come right out and say it directly, but they slyly said it was because of my son. They said that this year, since it was vacation, they wanted to be able to truly relax, and for the past few years they haven't been able to. They also said that this year they really wanted some adult time, since they haven't had any the last few years. Whenever my wife and I went out, our son would have to come too because no one would stay with him, and quite frankly I didn't trust any of the other kids to stay with him, and he had a meltdown once at a restaurant. Their final reason was that some of their kids were uncomfortable. We rent a big house out there, and felt unsafe staying in the house because of one instance where my son did get a little out of hand, one time out of the 4 years, so I did understand the part a bit. Like I said, they never came right out and said it was because of my son, but I knew and it really hurt. This trip is the only time my wife and I ever get away, and they knew that. I think it's pretty sad that a group of adults can't see past a few inconveniences and annoyances from a child who can't help it for a few days, but I know it's a little different to me because I deal with it all of the time. Overall, I'm just angry, hurt, and confused, as is my wife, by all of this because they are supposed to be my friends and I thought they understood everything. I feel like I'm ready to cut ties with all of them and not look back, but my wife thinks that I should tell them all how I truly felt about the situation so that they won't just think it's okay to do that to anyone. I don't really know what I'm asking, whether I'm overreacting, I truly don't think I am, or whether I should just end the friendship now or talk to them first. TLDR. Friends excluded me and my family from our annual trip because my son has autism. I just want to cut them off and be done with it, but my wife thinks I should talk to them and tell them just how unacceptable that is. Top comment. You have every right to feel hurt because we can't control the hands we're dealt. However, I'm inclined to say that your friends do have a valid point. An autistic child is a lot to deal with and not everyone is able to do it. Your point of view is people should accept him because he can't help it, because he's your child and you're used to it. Imagine it from the other point of view. They see it as a child who can randomly go off at any moment, whether he can help it or not. It doesn't matter if it's caused by a disease or just a hyperactive child. They see the potential meltdowns as uncomfortable and awkward. Pretend it wasn't your child. Pretend one of your friend's children has ADHD. His family wants to go on vacation because they're used to it and have learned to tune down his yelling. Would you want to go out with him constantly yelling and making people uncomfortable? Could your friends have been more straightforward in their approach? Yes. At the end of the day, they did a cost-benefit analysis and figured it was better to have peace of mind for their kids and them and decided to cut you. I recommend planning a vacation with your son. There's no reason why y'all can't have a great time as a family somewhere. Update. After thinking hard about it, I decided that I would talk to my friends about everything that happened. We decided to meet again and talk it out. They said that they understood why I was hurt, but weren't even planning on budging in any way. There was no hesitation this time, and one of them, the one with the rude daughter, told me straight out that being around my son was way too stressful and risky, and that this year they refused to constantly walk on eggshells and put their kids at risk for my family's sake. We were never the closest, but I still thought we were friendly enough acquaintances to be respectful to one another, but I guess not, and in the moment we did get into a bit of heated argument and basically nothing got resolved, but my childhood friend did tell me that he doesn't want this to end our friendship and that maybe next year we could all work something out, but quite frankly, I don't really want to go on a trip with any of them and I left. My wife, when I got home, was happy that I'd talked to them but upset that I even considered trying to come up with a solution to go on a trip where we would not even be wanted, which I understand. As far as my friendship with those guys, I'm not sure where it stands, and if we don't talk in the future it won't bother me too bad since they feel the way they do. I know that a lot of people disagree with me, but if you can't accept my child, then you can't accept me, especially when he's so dependent on me. I am a little disappointed because I thought we were all friends, but maybe it's for the best. TLDR. I talked to my friends, and things didn't go well, but that may be for the best. Top comments. Comment 1. Everyone in your last post said this is how they probably felt and have a right to feel. Almost to the letter. They feel like they have to walk on eggshells. Do you think they should be made to feel like that on their vacation? You feel like they're rejecting your family, and you have a right to feel that way, but it seems like you still haven't looked at the other side of the coin. Comment 2. Your friends don't owe you a vacation. You're demonizing them as if they don't like you or your kid, and you feel that they should accept your son without reservations because his misbehavior is part of his disability. Vacations are not supposed to be stressful, and your son adds stress to their vacation. They are in no way obligated to deal with that. You are because he is your kid. And guess what? They tried for 4 years to accept the situation and see it from your end. What have you tried? My girlfriend cheated with her boss, and our friends knew. I walked away. She tried to ruin me, but karma struck back. They lost everything. This morning, my phone exploded with 32 missed calls. Looking back, I should have seen it coming. The indicators were there, spread like breadcrumbs during the final months of our relationship. But after 3 years with someone, you tend to give them the benefit of the doubt. At least, that's what I was telling myself. It began with tiny things. Allison started working late more frequently, which is not uncommon during busy seasons. But then came the new perfume I didn't recognize, clothes I'd never seen before appearing in our wardrobe, and her phone suddenly becoming this hallowed object that was always within arm's reach. I've never been the jealous kind, but something felt strange. When I attempted to hug her from behind while she was texting, she would move away. How she'd walk out to accept calls while stating they were work-related. The frequent girls' nights with folks whose names I had never heard before. Last Tuesday, as I was folding clothes, her phone lit up on the coffee table. A message preview from someone named Jay appeared. I miss you already. Last night, the rest was cut off, but my stomach sank. I didn't want to be the person who snoops through his girlfriend's phone, but the universe appeared to be telling me to wake up. When she arrived home that night, I decided to be direct. She was in the kitchen, preparing a smoothie as if nothing were wrong. The sound of the blender filled our flat as I leaned against the doorframe to watch her. "Who's Jay?" I inquired as she finally switched it off. Her posture changed instantly. Her shoulders stiffened, but then she did something unexpected. She smiled. She smiled coldly and almost triumphantly, rather than her customary warmth. "Wondering when you'd finally catch on, Michael," she remarked, taking a sip from her glass. "Jay's my boss, and yes, I've been sleeping with him for the past 2 months." The nonchalant manner in which she said it felt like a slap. No guilt, no humiliation, only pride. "I needed a real man," she added, smirking. "Someone who knows what he wants and goes for it. Not someone who spends his weekends playing video games with Jacob and watching stupid movies." I stood there, pondering her words. After 3 years together, is this how she truly saw me? Through the shock, I felt something else rise. Not rage, but an odd sense of clarity. "Does Chloe know?" I inquired, remembering our mutual buddy who had introduced us. "Oh, she's known for weeks," Allison said, laughing. "Most of our friends know. They understand. Jay can actually provide a future, not just dreams and excuses." That stung harder than the cheating admission. These folks with whom we'd shared birthdays, holidays, and many dinners had all been watching this, most likely laughing behind my back. I took out my phone and entered the group chat with Jacob and Chloe. "Is that true? Did you all know?" Jacob's response arrived swiftly. "Bro, you're fantastic, but Allison deserves someone more experienced. Don't take this personally." Chloe joined in. "We did not mean to hurt you, but perhaps this is the wake-up call you need." I looked up from my phone to see Allison observing me with the same smirk on her lips. She was hoping for an explosion, drama, and a scene she could tell everyone about later. Poor, immature Michael is losing his calm. Instead, I smiled, a genuine smile that appeared to catch her off guard. Without saying anything, I walked to our bedroom, dug out my go bag, which I normally keep prepared for weekend getaways, and grabbed my laptop and keys. Allison was staring at me as I walked back through the kitchen, her smirk weakening slightly. "Where are you going?" she questioned. "Out," I answered simply. "And Allison, keep the apartment. I'm sure Jay can help with the rent." I heard her begin to say something as I closed the door behind me, but I didn't pause to listen. My phone was already vibrating with texts, most likely from our so-called pals attempting to justify themselves. As I drove away, I turned off my phone and felt something unexpected: relief. Sometimes losing everything reveals what you never had in the first place. Update 1. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone who responded to my previous post. I never anticipated it to blow up like that. A lot has happened in the last week, and I'm still absorbing it. I've been staying in a modest motel on the outskirts of town. It's not the most glamorous place, but it's clean, and the owner, an older man named Pete, appears to be a nice guy. He even reduced the weekly rent by $20 after hearing my story. I turned on my phone after 2 days of silence, 32 missed calls and 47 text messages. The majority were from Allison, some from Jacob and Chloe, and a few from numbers I didn't recognize. What drew my attention, however, was the social media notification storm. Allison had been busy, very busy. Her Instagram story depicted a picture that I scarcely recognized. Apparently, I was a controlling, jealous boyfriend who watched her every movement. According to her posts, I emotionally tortured her for years, cut her off from friends, and threw a violent tantrum when she finally stood up for herself. Each post received hundreds of sympathetic responses, including some from people I thought were friends. What about the crown jewel? In a sad video, she claimed I had financially mistreated her by forcing her to divide all of our bills 50-50 while I hoarded my money. Rich, considering she earned more than I did and insisted on the arrangement herself. Then came a text from Gemma, a coworker I'd known for years. "Hey, you might want to check your email. Something's going around the office about you." Sure enough, there was a company-wide email about creating a safe workplace environment, with a thinly veiled reference to recent troubling activities by specific workers. There were no names stated, but the timing was hardly subtle. I should have become angry. Perhaps I should have pushed back and shared my side of the story. Instead, I was curious. How far would she go? It turns out to be quite far. Yesterday, I went to our local coffee shop, which I assumed would be safe because Allison despised their coffee. Wrong. The barista, who had usually been kind, gave me a look as if I had attached to her shoe. Later, I discovered Allison had become a regular, telling her survival story with everyone who would listen. But this is where things become interesting. While retrieving some things from storage, I ran upon Juliana, Allison's alleged best friend. She appeared uneasy, peering around as if she was worried about being spotted chatting to me. "You need to be careful," she said quietly. "Jay isn't just her boss. His wife, she's connected. Like, really connected. And Allison's been telling her you're unstable." Dangerous, even. Why are you telling me this? Juliana's gaze flashed around again. Because this isn't the first time. Before you, there was another guy at work. Allison and Jay. They did the same thing to him. He ended up leaving town. That talk altered everything. I spent the night researching legal records, social media, whatever I could discover. It turns out the preceding man existed. Mark something. Allison disappeared totally from social media around the time she started at the company. This morning, I received a call from our landlord. Allison attempted to remove my name from the lease, alleging I had abandoned the property. When it didn't work, she informed him that I had been threatening her. He called to warn me. It turned out his sister had gone through something similar years before. But here's the real kicker. During all of this, I received a message request on Instagram from an account I did not recognize. The profile image was of a woman in her 40s, elegantly dressed and wearing costly jewelry. The message was simple: I believe we should discuss my husband and your girlfriend. Coffee tomorrow. It was signed by Mrs. J. I'm meeting her in an hour. Something tells me Allison's true guy story is going to get a lot more complicated. The weird thing is, watching Allison create this sophisticated web of lies, and seeing our friends take sides based solely on her word, is very liberating. Every hateful message, every phony tear, and every fabricated narrative only reinforces what I already knew. I am not losing anything worth keeping. Update 2, sorry for the delayed update, the last 2 weeks have been crazy. What about the coffee meetup with Mrs. J? Game changer. It turns out that she's been accumulating evidence for months, not only about Allison and her husband, but about a larger pattern of behavior inside the corporation. Remember how Juliana mentioned the person who had left town? He was not the first. Mrs. J has documented at least 3 similar incidents in the previous 5 years, with young employees becoming connected with her husband and then assisting in the removal of anyone who could expose them. What is the difference this time? Mrs. J had finished playing quietly. She had texts, emails, expense records, and security footage from the workplace parking garage. But she wanted one more thing: public visibility. This is where the yearly corporate party came in. I didn't intend to attend, why would I? Mrs. J had other ideas. Sometimes, she reminded me, the best retribution is simply letting people show their true colors. The party was held at a luxury downtown hotel. I arrived late and dressed nicer than I ever had on these occasions. What were the glances I got when I stepped in? Priceless. Allison almost dropped her drink. Jay's face changed from red to white so quickly that I thought he'd pass out. But here's the best part: I didn't have to do anything. Chloe approached first, obviously tipsy. You've got some nerve showing up here, she mumbled, loud enough for adjacent groups to hear. After everything you put Allison through. I just smiled. Everything I put her through? That's interesting. Tell me more. That was when Gemma walked in. Remember her? My coworker? She'd been quietly gathering her own evidence, screenshots of Allison talking about her escapades in business chat groups, recordings of her discussing how to spin the narrative with Jay. Actually, Gemma said, I think we'd all like to hear the real story. The following hour was like watching dominoes fall. Mrs. J arrived precisely on time, tablet in hand. The projector mistakenly began presenting a slideshow of embarrassing messages and photographs. Allison's increasingly desperate attempts to preserve control of her narrative. Jacob, however, put on the real show. Good old bros come before hoes, except when the hoe can help my career. Jacob. He'd been photographing everything with his phone, intending to present it to Jay later to prove his loyalty or something. Instead, he captured Allison's entire tantrum. You think you're so clever, she was screaming at me. You and that bitter old woman, trying to ruin everything I've built. Jay loves me. We're going to have a life together. Mrs. J chose to share the cherry on top. Divorce paperwork, already filed. It turned out that Jay had promised Allison the same future that he had promised the other employees. Same script, but different actress. What is the best part? Throughout this, I rarely spoke. I just watched years of manipulation and falsehoods unravel in real time. Juliana, who had been quiet throughout the evening, eventually spoke up. I helped her, she said, addressing the now quiet chamber. I helped her destroy that other guy's reputation. I can't do it again. By midnight, the party had effectively ended. Allison stormed out, mascara running down her face. Jay was confined in his office with HR. What about those friends who were so willing to trust her stories? They couldn't look me in the eyes as I left. Mrs. J grabbed my arm. Thank you, she said, for being the one who didn't run. I drove home to my motel room, feeling surprisingly calm. Pete was still awake, watching late-night television in the office. He took one look at my face and smiled. "Good night? You could say that?" This morning, my phone blew up again, this time in a different tone. Apologies, explanations. People claim they never truly trusted Allison's stories. I even received a note from Mark, the person who left town. Apparently, he has been following everything via mutual ties. Sometimes, karma doesn't require our assistance, it only requires an audience. Final update. This is it, the final chapter of this drama, and believe me, it has been an incredible ride. You may want to get some popcorn for this one. First and foremost, the fallout from the workplace party was more severe than anyone had anticipated. Within 48 hours, Jay and Allison were asked to quit. But that was only the beginning. Remember the documents Mrs. J had collected? It turns out there was more, much more. Jay had fabricated all of his expense reports to disguise his business dinners with Allison. Every correspondence in which they planned against fellow colleagues. Each falsified performance review. She gave it all to the board of directors. The company's legal team worked extremely quickly. They were more concerned with the trend of workplace harassment and financial malfeasance than with the affairs themselves. Both Jay and Allison are currently facing civil litigation. But this is where things become interesting. Remember Mark, the guy who skipped town? He came back. And he brought receipts. Literally and figuratively. It turns out he documented everything before he left, including the smear campaign Allison and Jay launched against him. He didn't know what to do with it all, until now. Mrs. J introduced him to her lawyer. 3 days later, he brought his own complaint. Then something lovely occurred. Other former employees began coming forward, each with their own story and evidence. What began as a single scandal suddenly became an avalanche. Allison attempted to get ahead of it. She uploaded an emotional video in which she claimed to be the true victim, having been duped by Jay and is now being persecuted. That's when Juliana developed a spine. She shared images of their private chats, in which Allison boasted about her escapades and plotted to harm people's reputations. The ones in which she insulted her victims. Allison visited my motel last week. Pete, the owner, called me at work. "That girl you told me about? She's making a scene in the parking lot." I took my time driving home. I found her sitting on the hood of my car, mascara streaked and clutching a manila envelope. "I have dirt on everyone," she stated, attempting to sound scary despite her wavering voice. "If you don't help me stop this, I'll release it all." I just chuckled. "Go ahead. Burn every bridge you have left. See how that works out." She flung the envelope at me. Inside were images, screenshots, and private messages, which she had accumulated over years of influencing others. Her insurance policy. I photographed every single page while she watched. Then I handed it back to her. "Release whatever you want. But first, look at where your previous schemes got you. What about folks like Allison? They cannot stand when their weapons are used against them." She ripped up the envelope right there in the parking lot, shouting about how we'd all regret it. Was that a tantrum? Someone recorded it. Within a few hours, it had spread over social media. The ultimate blow occurred yesterday. Mrs. J's divorce was final, and, guess what? She received everything? The house? The autos? Most of their assets. Jay's golden parachute from his company? Gone to pay legal fees. What's his reputation? Destroyed? What are his future professional prospects? Let's just say, Google is no longer his friend. How about Allison? According to what I've heard, she's returning to live with her parents in another state. Her social media has gone dark. Those that sided with her? They are dealing with their own fallout. It turns out that backing the wrong horse has consequences. Jacob attempted to apologize yesterday. I sent him a long note on how he could have been a better friend. I simply responded with a screenshot of his previous messages supporting Allison. He stopped me. Coward. Chloe is also conducting damage control. She is concerned that the screenshots Allison saved may have an impact on her own career. I almost feel bad. Almost. Me? I just signed a lease for a new apartment. I got a promotion at work. It's funny how removing poisonous people improves things. And yes, I'm seeing someone new. Taking it slowly. Doing things correctly. Plotting and scheming are not the best ways to exact revenge. It's living well while allowing people to harm themselves. But I will not lie. It's been really pleasant to watch everything burn. This will be my final update. Thank you for joining along for the ride, Reddit. Remember, karma doesn't need your help. Sometimes you just have to step aside and let folks show their true colors. Neglected by my family, I left. When my brother was arrested, they begged for help. I demanded an apology, then refused. Do you ever feel like you're just there? Like you exist in a space but no one sees you? That is how it has always been in my family. I wasn't the perfect child. I was not the troublemaker. Just the one in the middle. The one who performed what was required but never quite enough. It started little. Small things. My parents forgot to save me a plate for dinner. My brother took my items without asking, knowing that no one would care if I protested. They never explicitly stated that I wasn't wanted, at least not at first, but it was always there. In the way people spoke around me, my existence seemed like an afterthought. I attempted to brush it off. Families were not perfect, correct? Perhaps I was simply being sensitive. Maybe if I worked more and performed better, they'd finally see me as someone worth keeping. So I worked hard. I made certain that my grades were solid. I helped around the house. I remained out of trouble. However, it never seemed to matter. My brother? He could do whatever he wanted, talk back, skip chores, fail a class, it made no difference. My parents would make excuses for him. He's only a kid. He's going through a difficult moment, you should be more supportive of him. Every time I brought out the disparity in how we were treated, I became the problem. It was difficult. The resentment eventually bubbled over. But it's not from me. From them. It was Saturday night. I'd just come home from work. Nothing extraordinary, simply a part-time job at a neighborhood grocery store. My parents never gave me much money, so I worked on weekends to save some. My brother, on the other hand, did not need to lift a finger. He received everything he wanted. I entered the house, tired. The first thing I saw was him sitting on the couch, controller in hand, deeply immersed in his game. A half-eaten dish of food rested on the table. And my backpack is on the floor. Open. My notebooks and papers were spilled on the carpeting. What the hell, dude? I sighed and bent down to gather up my belongings. Oh yeah, he mumbled, staring at the television. We needed paper. I took some. As I flipped through my notebook, my stomach sank. My notes, which I had spent hours on, were gone. Torn out. I clenched my jaw. Are you serious? He finally looked at me and said, relax. It's simply some pointless notes. It's not like you do anything important. That landed harder than it should have. Perhaps because deep down, I knew that was how he saw me. How everyone saw me. Where are they? I inquired, my voice tight. He scoffed. Dunno. Probably in the trash. I'm not sure what happened at that moment, but something inside me snapped. Not in a violent, screaming way, but in a cold, calm knowledge. I was not one of them. Not really. I took a deep breath and forced myself to remain calm. You're unbelievable, I mumbled as I walked by him to the kitchen. That's when my folks entered. And that's when things started to go wrong. My mother and father entered, laughing at something, an inside joke between them. Something I never participated in, but as they noticed me standing there, their demeanor changed. What's with this attitude? My father asked, his eyes narrowing. I sighed sharply while still holding my destroyed notebook. Ask him, I said, nodding to my brother. He ripped out my notes. I just threw them away like they were nothing. My mother scarcely glanced at him. It's just paper, she remarked with a dismissive palm. I stared between them, expecting something. Even anything as simple as that wasn't cool or don't do that again. But nothing. Instead, my brother smirked. Yeah, it's just paper, he repeated, as if he knew he had already won. I felt my fingers tightening around the notebook. Right. Of course. I turned to head upstairs, but my father's voice stopped me. You know, this attitude is exactly why no one wants to be around you. I froze. What? I inquired, turning slowly. Dumb, my mother moaned, as if she had grown tired of me. You overreact to everything. Constantly playing the victim. Always creating problems. Is this causing problems? I gave out a sour laugh. For what? Expecting basic respect? Because I don't want my belongings trashed? My brother snorted. God, you're so dramatic. I shake my head. You behave as if I'm the problem, but you don't even notice what's occurring. You just let him do what he wants. Dad folded his arms. Because he's not the one constantly whining. That hit hard. But not as difficult as what happened later. My brother lay back on the couch, arms extended behind his head, smirking. No one wants you here, man. I felt my stomach drop. But my parents' reaction broke something in me. They nodded. They truly nodded. My mom didn't say anything. My father didn't argue. They just stood there silently, as if they had already accepted that fact. I did not yell. I did not beg them to take it back. I just breathed. And something inside of me went cold. Okay, I replied simply. And I went upstairs to pack my stuff. And I left. But this was not the end. Not even close. Because the next morning, my phone was filled with 12 missed calls. And that's when I realized that leaving was the best decision I'd ever made. I did not answer any of the calls. Not at first. I simply gazed at my phone, watching as the notifications piled up. My brother. My dad. Even my mother. For a family that didn't want me, they were frantic to contact me now. I let it ring. I was not in a haste. After leaving last night, I didn't have a plan. I threw my belongings in a duffel bag and walked out, feeling numb. I crashed at a friend's place, someone who genuinely cared about me. He didn't ask any questions. I didn't push. He simply tossed me a blanket and added, "You can stay as long as you need." It was more kindness than my own family had shown me in many years. They wanted something now. And I suspected it wasn't because they missed me. By the time the calls ceased, a few texts began to arrive. The first ones were exactly what I imagined. Mom. You are acting immature. Come back. Dad. Enough with this crap. You should quit acting like a child. I scoffed. Yes, I actually left. They were definitely not apologetic. Then a new message arrived. One event transformed everything. Mom. Come home now. We have an issue. I glanced at the screen, my pulse quickening. Is there a problem? I considered ignoring it, but curiosity got the better of me. I finally texted back. Only 2 words. Me. What happened? Her reply came almost immediately. Mom. Your brother messed up. Bad. And just like that, I knew. They did not miss me. They did not want me back. They needed me. And that gave me an idea. I lay back on the couch and stared at my phone. So they needed me. Interesting. I was not in a hurry to answer. Instead, I allowed them to sweat a little. If my brother had truly messed up, whatever happened was significant enough that my parents, who had never taken my side, were now reaching out. After around 10 minutes of silence, more texts started arriving. Dad. We don't have time for your attitude, just come home. Mom. Please. This is serious, seriously. That almost made me laugh. When my troubles became serious, they advised me to get over them. But now that my brother was in peril, it became crucial. I took my time penning the next response. Me. It's not my problem. A minute has passed. Then another. Then my father called. I let it ring, declined. A second later, a text appeared. Dad. You are being selfish. I breathed sharply through my nose. Selfish? That was impressive coming from him. Then my mother texted again. Mom. Your brother has been arrested. I blinked. Okay, now I am interested. I took my friend's car keys from the countertop. I need a ride. He raised an eyebrow. You sure? Thought you were done with them. I smirked. Oh, I am. But I need to see this for myself. 15 minutes later I pulled up in front of my home. My father was pacing on the porch, phone in hand, and appeared more anxious than I'd ever seen him. My mother sat on the steps, head in her hands. For once, no one laughed, no disparaging remarks, just pure panic. Silence. I took my time walking up. So, I casually inquired. Who wants to tell me what happened? My father turned, his gaze steely. Where the hell have you been? I raised an eyebrow. Not here, like you wanted? He clenched his teeth, but before he could respond, my mother spoke. It's your brother, she explained, her voice cracking. He stole something? From the wrong people? I frowned. The wrong people? Dad ran his fingers over his face. Some guys at that arcade he hangs out at. We don't know the details, but they called the cops. He's in holding right now. I nearly laughed. Of course, my brother had spent years treating me like garbage, believing he was untouchable. And now, the actual world had struck him like a truck. I crossed my arms. And what do you want me to do about it? Mom shot me a frantic look. We need money. For a lawyer. Bail. Something. We need your help. I stared at her for a long time. Then I finally grinned. They needed me. But I didn't need them. After years of shoving me aside and treating me like I was nothing, they now looked at me as if I were their only hope. And in a way, I was. I tucked my hands in my pockets and tilted my head slightly. So let me get this straight, I muttered. You told me I was unwanted. You let my brother treat me like garbage. You didn't care when I walked out. But now that he's in trouble, you suddenly remember I exist? My father's jaw stiffened. This isn't about that. This is about family. I laughed. A brief piercing noise. Oh, now we're family? That's funny. Because last night, I was a burden. Mom's eyes were begging. Please. We can talk about all of that later. Right now, we need to get him out before this gets worse. I let out a slow breath, pretending to think about it. And how much money are we talking about? Dad exhaled. Bail is set at $10,000. We can pay a portion, but we need you to cover the rest. I whistled. 10 grand, huh? Sounds serious. My mother perked up somewhat. So, you'll do it? I smirked. Oh, absolutely not. Their faces sank so quickly that I nearly felt awful. Almost. Excuse me? My father snapped. I shrugged. Not my problem. Mom's voice crackled. But, he's your brother. I shake my head. He's your son. I corrected with a firm voice. And you made it very clear that I was never part of this family. Dad stepped forward, wrath in his eyes. You think you're proving a point? You think this is funny? I met his stare without flinching. No. I smirked. I think it's fair. Mom grabbed my arm, her words urgent. We'll pay you back, I took a step backward. You think I trust you? The people who threw me away without a second thought? Her lips opened and closed, but she said nothing. I shake my head. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to figure this out without me, just like you always wanted. And I'm going to walk away, just like you told me to. I turned on my heels and returned to my friend's car. My father cried after me, Don't you dare walk away from us. I looked over my shoulder. You already did it first. Then I got in my car and drove away, leaving them in the mess they had created. I drove away. My fists gripped around the steering wheel. I should have felt triumphant. I should have felt like I finally had the last laugh. But, instead? I felt hollow. Not because I regretted my decision, they deserved it, but because after all, even when they begged for my assistance, I knew they still didn't consider me family. They simply saw me as a solution. A wallet. A safety net. And now, that net was gone. That night, I sat in my room, reading through my phone and eating a beautiful, fatty burger from my favorite takeout restaurant. It was serene. Quiet. I hadn't experienced a night like this in years living under that roof. I considered turning my phone on mute, but I couldn't resist checking my alerts. Surprise, surprise, my family had not given up. Mom sent 3 SMS in a row. Mom. Let's work something out. Please let's speak. Mother. Your brother is still in jail. We're having trouble getting the money together. Mom. Please, I understand we were tough previously, but, we're family. I almost choked on my soda. Are we now a family? Did they finally care? That was lavish. I was pondering whether to answer when another text arrived, this time from my father. Dad. See, we can repay you. You simply need to trust us. That one had me laughing out loud. Trust them. The same people who for years treated me as if I were an unwanted guest in my own home? Are these the same people who advised me to leave without hesitation? Yeah. Right. Just as I was about to put my phone down, another message arrived. Brother. Come on, man. Are you really going to let me rot here? Oh, this was really amazing. After everything he's put me through, all the times he's shoved me around, mocked me, and labeled me useless, what now? Now he sought my assistance. I decided to have some fun. Me. You said no one wanted me around. I'm simply respecting your requests. Delivered, read. No response. I smiled at myself, extended my arms behind my head, and ate another piece of my burger. Life was good. The following morning, I awoke to a rush of messages. Groggy, I massaged my eyes, unlocked my phone, and began scrolling through them. Apparently, things were getting tough for the family at home. Dad. We had to sell both the TV and my golf clubs. Your mother is furious at me. I hope you're happy. Dad. Please. We don't know what to do now. And then, the best one yet. Brother. I swear to God, when I leave, you better hope I don't find you. That was hilarious. Was the same guy who needed my help now threatening me? I chose to respond. Me. That is some strong language for someone who requires my assistance. Try again. An hour passed before my mother swallowed her pride and sent another message. Mom. Please, we are definitely struggling. I let her sit in her desperation for a few minutes before responding. Me. I'll bail him out. On one condition. She did not hesitate. Mom. Anything? I smirked. I want a public apology. In the family group chat. A long one. I want you all to admit every horrible thing you've said to me, and I want you to thank me for helping. I knew that would hurt my father's pride. But if they needed my help so desperately, they'd have to beg for it. It did take them a bit. But eventually, a new message appeared in the family group chat. Dad. We need to discuss how we've treated you. We've made mistakes, and we now see how deeply we've wounded him. We profoundly regret our comments and behavior. He is an essential member of our family, and we appreciate his generosity in assisting us during this tough time. It was stiff, it was forced, and it was quite humiliating for them. Perfect. I gave them a simple thumbs up emoji and proceeded about my day. Did I really bail my brother out? Haha. Absolutely not. But at least I received the apologies I had always deserved. Next week, my brother called me. Man, I can't believe you did this to me, he said over the phone, his voice heavy with rage. I thought you were better than this. I couldn't help laughing. It was not a malicious chuckle. It's more like the giggle you get when the universe gives you precisely what you deserve. Better than what? I inquired, my voice light and even humorous. I'm just giving you what you wanted. You told me I wasn't wanted, remember? So now you get to stay exactly where you belong. I could hear him smashing something into the jail bars in the distance. You can't do this? You're really just leaving me here? I paused for a moment before responding. You know, I thought I might bail you out. I really did. But you, and the rest of the family, you've made it pretty clear that I don't matter. I paused to allow the words to sink in. So now? I get to laugh. I get to enjoy my life, knowing that I'm out here living it on my terms while you're stuck. Enjoy your stay. He did not say anything for a while. I could almost see him furious on the other end. But I didn't care. After years of being regarded as an afterthought, like an unseen shadow in the backdrop, this was my moment. When I hung up the phone, a sense of relief washed over me. I wasn't angry anymore. In fact, I couldn't feel the resentment I used to harbor for them. Everything had melted away. Just like that. My brother remained in jail. They did everything to get him out, but the charges were so serious that they couldn't help him. They begged and pleaded, but the reality was, they needed me far more than I needed them. As for me, I walked away. Hold your head high. I knew I'd finally returned my power. I didn't have to move a finger to make their lives miserable. They had already done it for me. All I had to do was relax, enjoy my quiet, and know that they would never see me the same way again. And whenever I looked at my phone, with its continual reminders of how desperate they were, I smiled. Because in the end, it wasn't only about the money, it was about the sweet, fulfilling taste of vengeance. For the first time in years, I was finally living for myself. Honestly, this story is quite satisfying. The protagonist was mistreated by his family, but the way he turned the tables and refused to help his brother was great. It's like the best revenge. And he didn't even need to do anything drastic, just let them face the consequences. What are your thoughts? Was that the correct decision, or did he go too far? Would you have helped? Or is this retribution well deserved? Let me know your thoughts. I was ignored by my family, overshadowed by my mom's favoritism. No matter how hard I tried, I was always blamed for my sister's mistakes. I was never a favorite. That was my sister, the golden child. The person who could do no wrong, no matter how vicious she was or how much she got away with. My mother adored her. And me? I was just there. An afterthought. A shadow in my own house. It's always been this way. Growing up, I immediately realized that my opinions did not matter. My dreams were unimportant. My feelings? Either disregarded or mocked. My sister failed a test because I distracted her. When she lost a buddy, I was very likely the cause. When she broke something, I must have pushed her. And my mother? She believed her. Every single time. I strived to be a perfect daughter. I worked hard. Received good grades. I remained silent as they insulted me. I never acted out. Never fought back. I hoped that if I demonstrated my worth, they would eventually love me as much as they loved her. However, nothing changed. And suddenly everything came crumbling down. It began with an argument. Well, they were arguing. I was just standing there and letting them rant. My sister had failed a class and, rather than accepting responsibility, blamed me. Again. I didn't know how. Perhaps I stressed her out simply by being. "You've ruined our lives," she exclaimed. I barely had time to respond before my mother added, "We'd be happier without you." And that was it. The moment that left me broken. I did not cry. I did not yell. I did not beg them to take it back. I just nodded. Then I turned around, walked to my room, got a backpack, and packed whatever I could fit. They did not stop me. They did not even watch me depart. Just like that. I was gone. I stepped outside into the night, the weight of my backpack pressing against my shoulders. However, nothing compared to the heaviness in my chest. I walked without a destination. Simply putting distance between myself and the house I'd never fully called home. It was frigid. I recall that vividly. The air nipped at my skin, but I didn't shudder. I was numb. I had always imagined leaving would be spectacular, like in the movies. Maybe with tears rolling down my cheeks. Maybe with one final lingering look at the house I was leaving. However, there was none of it. No one pursued me. Nobody called my name. Nobody cared that I didn't know where to go. I had no plans. There's no safety net. My savings? Laughable. I had a few $100s put away from modest tutoring gigs, but I knew one thing for sure, I'd never go back. I chose a cheap motel for the night and paid for a single room with trembling hands. I glanced at the bed but couldn't make myself lie down. Instead, I sat at the small desk, the weak yellow light flickering above me, trying to decide what to do next. I did not have a degree. I didn't have any connections. I barely had any money. But I had one advantage. I'd spent my whole life being ignored. Underestimated. Nobody had ever handed me anything. If I was going to succeed, I'd have to create something from nothing. I began with what I knew. Studying. It sounded ludicrous at the time, but I was really excellent at it. I had spent years excelling in school, instructing other students, and assisting individuals with complicated subjects. Maybe, just maybe, I can make that into something. The next day, I went to a small cafe, ordered the cheapest coffee on the menu, and utilized the free Wi-Fi to apply for every online tutoring opportunity I could find. I kept my charges low, just enough to entice folks to notice me. Initially, it was just enough to get by. I lived on quick noodles and dollar store foods. I rented a room in a shared apartment with 3 strangers who barely knew I existed. However, it was still better than where I had come from. Because every day, I awoke knowing that no one would yell at me. Nobody would blame me for their failings. Nobody would say I was wrecking their life. And it was enough. The months have passed. My tutoring opportunities grew. 1 client became 3. 3 multiplied into 10. I soon made enough money to move into a tiny studio apartment that was scarcely larger than a box. But it was mine. Despite all of this, my family never phoned. Not once. Not on my birthday. Not on holidays. Not even to see if I was alive. It hurts, as old wounds do. Deep. Silent. Lingering. But I assured myself everything was good. If they did not care, neither did I. A year into my new existence, things began to alter. I had established a reputation as an instructor specializing in college entrance tests. Students from all throughout the country reached out, begging for assistance. However, I was still trading time for money. And I knew it wasn't sustainable. That's when I had an idea. What if I combined my lessons into something bigger? Something scalable? I spent several months researching digital marketing. Watching hours of free YouTube content. I read every article I could find. Then, I began designing my own online course. The ultimate SAT preparation guide. There was a risk. I spent every spare money I had on developing the course, creating a website, and running advertisements. Sales began slowly, 1 here and 2 there. Then something changed. Word of mouth spread. Students began raving about my approaches and shared them online. And, almost overnight, it burst. I awoke one morning to see that my sales had tripled. Then quadrupled. Within a few months, I was earning more than I had ever dreamed imaginable. I moved into a swanky high-rise apartment, the kind I used to fantasize about. I traveled. I met folks who genuinely respected me. Created friendships that were not based on obligation or blood. I'd done it. I'd created myself from nothing. And my family? They were nowhere to be found. Not a single message. Not a single call. They didn't care about me. Until this morning. My phone vibrated. I scarcely looked at it. Then I noticed the notifications. Mom has 6 missed calls. Sister has 8 missed calls. I stared at the screen, my heart racing. After all this time, they had made it apparent that they never wanted me. I let out a slow breath. I'd changed. I wasn't the helpless, needy girl they had kicked out of their life. I wasn't their punching bag anymore. Whatever they wanted, this was not supposed to be an apology. And I had no intention of making things easy for them. I sat there and stared at the screen. For what seemed like hours. But in actuality, it just took a few minutes. My thoughts raced. What could they want after all this time? Mom has never apologized for the way she treated me. She'd never revealed that she always picked my sister above me. And my sister? She hadn't even realized I was gone. Until now. But now, after all, they wanted me. I eventually decided to pick up. It was almost weird to hear her voice after so long. Hello? I asked, keeping my voice calm. Sweetie, please, we need to talk. Mom's voice quivered. Sweetie? After everything? She hadn't called me that in years. The phony compassion wounded. What's going on? I inquired, not masking my disbelief. There was a prolonged pause. We've fallen on hard times, Mom explained, her voice quivering. Your sister, she's been having trouble at school again, and with everything going on, we just don't have enough. She said with hesitation. We need your help. I bit my lip, a strange combination of satisfaction and wrath welling up inside me. Was this why they called me now? What kind of assistance? I inquired, keeping my voice calm. We need money, she said abruptly. Your sister's tuition, it's due. And we have bills we can't pay. I know we've never been there for you, but please. We're struggling. We need you to help us. We know it's a lot to ask, but please, we've tried everything. I could hear her sniffles. Perhaps it was genuine. Perhaps it was just guilt attempting to make its way back in. Please, she repeated. We need you back. We need your support. The words remained in the air. My support. They had been rejecting this assistance for years. I closed my eyes for a while, attempting to calm the flood of emotions that threatened to choke me. How could they think this was acceptable? For the first time in a long time, I felt more than apathy. It was hilarious. You're serious? I inquired, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. You really think I'll come back and help you? After everything? There was a gap followed by my mother's anxious cry. Please don't do this. We know we messed up, but we're your family. You can't just leave us like this. I clenched my fist. You never cared about me when I needed you, I replied, my voice shaking with restrained rage. You were too busy with your golden child. You let me disappear. You told me you'd be better off without me. I paused, feeling wrath well up in my chest. But I kept it in check. I was not going to let them know how deeply they had hurt me. I was not going to let them turn this around on me. I don't owe you anything, I said, my words as cutting as glass. Another prolonged delay. Then, why? My sister's voice rang out next, agitated and panicked. I know I was horrible to you. But I need your help. I messed up, okay? I didn't mean it. I've been trying to fix things, but I don't know what to do anymore. I nearly laughed. Fix things? How can you treat years of pain? I don't want your apologies, I replied bitterly. And I don't owe you my money or my help. You can figure it out, just like I did. But please, just... My sister's voice wavered, but I shut it off. You should have thought about this before you kicked me out of your lives. I could feel my heart race as I hung up the phone. However, the adrenaline was not solely derived from rage. It stemmed from satisfaction. Knowing they needed me gave me a sense of satisfaction. After years of silence and pretending I did not exist, they needed me. I stood up and paced the room, allowing the gravity of the situation to set in. They were not calling to apologize. They weren't calling because they had missed me. They were phoning because they wanted me to remedy their mess. And while they struggled, they recognized what they had thrown away. But that didn't matter to me. They did not deserve me anymore. I was finished. But deep down, a part of me wanted to make them beg even longer. Make them uncomfortable. The phone vibrated again. I glanced at the screen. Mom, again. Her message carried the same desperate tone. Please. I know we can't undo the past, but we need you. I grinned. They had no idea what they were getting into. The phone vibrated again. The screen flashed with another message from my mother. Please, I'm begging you. We don't know where else to turn. I stared at the message, my finger hovering above the screen. Part of me wanted to dismiss it completely. Following all. Hadn't I previously answered them? But the desperation in her tone made me hesitate. For a time. Then I shook my head. Number, I was not going to soften. I was not going to be the one to improve their lives again. The thing is, I'd constructed something for myself. My empire, so to speak. My achievement wasn't solely about money. It was about the ability to choose who would be a part of my life. And my family? They no longer deserve that luxury. I put the phone down. I walked to the window. I looked out at the city. From this vantage point, everything seemed far away. So little. My former life's troubles felt like they belonged to someone else. I wasn't that person anymore. I was not their burden. Nevertheless, the messages kept pouring. I took a breath. I was not going to give in. I was not going to let them influence me with their guilt. But, deep down, there was a flare of something. Perhaps it was a pity. Perhaps curiosity. Perhaps something darker. But I resisted. The following morning, I awoke to the sound of my phone vibrating on the nightstand. Again. A quick peek at the screen confirmed it was from my sister. This time, I paused. Should I bother reading this? But my thumb swiped across the screen before I could think about it any longer. The message came in. I know I can't change the past, but I've been trying so hard to get into college. They rejected me, and now Mom's saying that if we don't get the money for the retake, I'll never make it. Please. Please. I'm so sorry. I felt an unusual sensation. Not sympathetic, not guilty. But something made me halt. Was this genuine? Was my sister really begging me? Or was she simply doing her part? I took a deep breath, my hand trembling as I typed my response. You never cared when I needed you. Why should I care now? I pressed send. The weight that settled in my chest felt heavier than I anticipated. A part of me felt cold and detached. I had built some protective armor over the years. But there's another part of me. It wanted to believe her. But I could not. I continued to work throughout the day. But, every time I looked at my phone, there were additional notifications. Calls. Texts. Voicemails. They were unrelenting. I could feel their desperation creeping through the screen and the words. They were beginning to disintegrate under the weight of their own decisions. But what did they expect of me? They'd made their bed. They'd picked their route. Now was the time for them to face the consequences. But then, at 7 p.m., I noticed something that made my heart skip a beat. A note from Mom. I need to talk to you. This isn't just about money. I know I messed up, we messed up. But I'm asking you, as a mother, to come home. I need you. We need you. Please don't leave us like this. I stared at the message. My thumb hovered above the keyboard. I briefly pondered calling her back. Perhaps I could hear her out. Maybe I can find a way to make this work. But then, I thought about what they had put me through. They treated me as if I did not matter. I was not going to forget that. I was not their savior. With a long exhale, I typed. You had your chance. I'm done. I pressed send. And something within me cracked. I knew I'd made the proper decision. At the same time, I felt a lingering ache in my chest. Because deep inside, I couldn't help wondering. What if this was their final scream for help? What if they truly were suffering? But in the end, I learned one thing. I could not repair them. They were beyond rescuing. If they wanted anything from me, it needed to be on my terms. I put my phone down and attempted to forget about them. But the following evening, while I was sitting in my living room, going through my phone, I heard a knock on the door. A sharp and fast rap. There was a pause afterwards. I looked up, puzzled. Who might that be? I stood up and moved toward the door, the hairs on the back of my neck standing on edge. Something did not feel right. Looking through the peephole, my stomach sank. There they were. Mom. Dad. My sister. I am standing on my porch. They looked like they hadn't slept for days. Their faces were worn, drawn, and pale. But it wasn't only their appearance that made my pulse quicken. It was the fact that they had arrived here. Uninvited. I hesitated for a time, unsure what to do. Part of me wished to ignore them. Turn around and walk away, pretending I hadn't noticed them. But the wrath I had been suppressing surged up. I wasn't about to let them enter my space, not after all they had done. I opened the door just enough to see them clearly, my heart pounding in my chest. "What are you doing here?" I questioned, my voice low and angry. Mom stepped forward first, her eyes wide with despair. Please, just hear us out," she begged, her voice shaking. I stared at her. The same woman who said she'd be better off without me. Who had repeatedly shoved me aside. So now, she was standing on my porch, pleading for assistance. "What the hell are you doing here?" I asked, my voice rising. "You think just because you show up at my door, I'm going to take you back? You think I'm going to forget everything you've done?" Dad shuffled uneasily behind Mom but did not speak. My sister stood next to him, staring at the ground and avoiding my look. We're sorry," Mom admitted, her voice breaking. "We've been trying to reach you, but we know we've messed up. It's just so hard, and we don't know what else to do. You're the only one who can help us. The only one who can help you." I felt the rage surge like a tidal wave. "You didn't need me before. Why now?" "You had years to fix this," I retorted. "Years. And you never once bothered to reach out. To make things right. Not when it mattered. And now you think you can just show up here and make everything okay?" They remained silent for a minute, evidently surprised by my coolness. Mom's eyes filled with tears. But I could not force myself to care. "We've been struggling," she said in a desperate whisper. "We don't have money for rent. Your sister's future is slipping away. I don't know what else to do." I clenched my fist. "Don't tell me you don't know what else to do," I exclaimed, my voice quivering with rage. "You had choices. You made choices. And I wasn't part of them. But now that everything's falling apart, suddenly you want me?" Mom took a step forward, hand outstretched. "Please, just listen." I slammed the door on her face. The sound resonated throughout the home. The boom rang in my ears. And for a brief moment, I felt a rush of power. I could finally take control of this situation. But while I stood there with my hand on the door handle, something gnawed at me. Something twisted in my stomach. It wasn't a case of guilt, it was terrible. It was the knowledge that they'd come here, to me, because they had nowhere else to go. And they had shown up. Not because they wanted to improve our connection, not because they were genuinely remorseful, but they needed me, and I despised it. They did not deserve me. But rage was not the only emotion I felt. A part of me wanted to hurt them. To show them how terribly they had messed up. Make them suffer the consequences of their own conduct. And the fact that they assumed they could simply walk up on my doorstep. It got me angry more than anything else. I moved away from the door, leaving them standing on the other side. But they did not leave. I could hear them conversing outside. Mom was pleading. My sister was crying. Dad was attempting to console them. I couldn't take it anymore. The rage within me was tremendous, and I knew I'd regret not doing something. So I reopened the door. There they were. Standing there. Still waiting. Desperation was written all over their features. Mom's eyes were red from crying. My sister hung her head low in shame, and Dad? He appeared defeated. Like a man who had lost everything and had no idea how to get it back. For a moment, I simply stood there. Taking in the view of them. The family that had harmed me. The family had made me feel useless. Invisible. So now, they were here. Asking for assistance. But what do I owe them? Nothing. I took a deep breath. And then, without saying anything, I took one last glance at them. No. You don't get to come here and expect forgiveness just because you're struggling now. The words came out coldly. Hard. Like a scalpel cutting through the strain. I didn't feel any regret as I stated them. They deserve to hear the truth. You had years to fix this, I said, my tone steady but forceful. Years to realize what you lost. But you didn't care then. And I'm not going to be your solution now. I noticed Mom open her mouth in protest. But I held up my hand to silence her. I built my life. My success. From the ground up. And I'm not going to let you destroy it too. You don't get to come into my life and expect everything to magically change because you've hit rock bottom. Their eyes started welling up again. But I felt nothing. There is no guilt, no regret. Just some calm satisfaction. I knew I was finally putting myself first. Go, I stated simply, my tone unyielding. Fix your own mess, I'm done. I closed the door for the final time. Weeks have passed, and I continued living my life. My business has grown, my network expanded, And I felt more energized than ever. I had become the person I had always wished to be. The person who did not have to apologize for their accomplishments. The one who had learned to let go of the negative aspects of their history. I never heard from them again. Not a message. Not a call. And you know what? It was fine. It was the tranquil peace I hadn't realized I'd been seeking. And as time passed, I came to realize something important. The ones who have wronged you, those who abandoned you, are not the people you should seek validation. You are the one who matters. You get to select what happens to your future. In the end, I had discovered one very simple truth. You can't keep giving to individuals who have never given you anything back. The door closed. For good. After 12 years building my father's company to $75 million, he gave it to my brother. Did they really think I'd just accept that? After 12 years of operating my father's company, I finally increased its value to $75 million. At a family supper, my father glanced at me and smiled. "Your brother will take over now." My heart dropped, but I smiled back. The following morning at work, everything changed. I vividly remember my father's smile that night, his hand resting proudly on my brother's shoulder, as if he had already made up his mind before saying the words that would change everything. "Your brother will take over now." I felt my stomach plummet, but years of skill kept my expression calm. I smiled back, like if his words hadn't pierced right through me, unraveling 12 years of my life's work in an instant. The dining room was alive with the clinking of glasses and the gentle hum of talks among extended relatives and close business associates. This was more than just a family dinner. It was a celebration. A minute to honor everything we had built. Everything I'd built. My father founded Harper & Company when I was a child, a small logistics company that struggled to stay alive during its early years. I grew up watching my father fight to keep things going, working late hours, forgoing family holidays, and always pursuing the next contract to make ends meet. When I was 24, fresh out of business school, he eventually let me in. Though I had to fight for the opportunity. And I had done more than simply step in. Harper & Company had grown from a struggling regional logistics concern to a nationwide powerhouse under my leadership, with operations expanded, million-dollar contracts secured, and cutting-edge technology integrated. What was once a small, virtually bankrupt company has grown into an industry leader valued at $75 million. But, at this moment, none of it mattered. My father had already made the decision. My brother Ethan would take over. Not me? A gentle wave of approval rippled over the table, with murmurs of congratulations directed toward Ethan. I watched as he lowered his gaze, pretending modesty. Though I knew better. Ethan had never completely invested in the firm. He'd spent the last decade jumping from one failed business to the next, never quite finding his feet. He was not interested in logistics. He was not interested in operations. However, he was interested in power. I'd spent 12 years proving myself, starting Harper & Company from the bottom up, making every difficult decision, late-night strategy call, and contract negotiation. Ethan hadn't done any of it. And yet here we were. Nonetheless, I swallowed my emotions. I'd learned a long time ago that exhibiting pain was considered a weakness in this household. I reached for my wine glass and steadied my hand before lifting it. "Lisa? Smile. Smile." "To Ethan," I replied, my voice smooth and controlled. The visitors raised their glasses, unaware of the tempest developing behind my eyes. My mother looked at me from across the table, an unreadable expression on her face. But I knew she understood. Unlike my father, Mom had always recognized the effort I put in. But she refused to interfere. She never did. Then there was my father, smiling with the same unflinching assurance, fully oblivious that his decision had put something in motion. Ethan met my eyes from across the table, a smirk barely visible on the corner of his lips. That was the moment I knew. This was not solely my father's decision. Ethan had waited for this. He had carefully positioned himself, portraying the loyal son who had finally discovered his purpose. My father, a staunch conservative, saw no problem in his rationale. The kingdom should be passed down from father to son. A daughter's efforts were always viewed as temporary, a footnote in history, no matter how hard she worked to show different. But what they didn't realize, and none of them had considered, was that I had spent the previous 12 years not only developing a company, but also consolidating my position inside it. And the next morning, they'd figure out what that meant. That night, I hardly slept. My thoughts replayed every sacrifice I'd made for Harper & Company, late nights, missed birthdays, and relationships strained under the weight of my desire. I had given everything to this company. And now they expect me to just step aside? Number they'd underestimated me. By 3 a.m., I was in my home office, typing furiously on my keyboard. Each contract, every share, all executive agreements. Nobody knew how this company worked better than I did. Ethan expected a smooth transition, that by next week, his name would be on the office door, and his employment would be guaranteed. What he didn't realize was that while my father was busy making public appearances and my brother was busy pretending to understand the business, I had secured something much more valuable. Control. I entered Harper & Company headquarters at exactly 8:45 a.m., as I had done for the previous 12 years. The same walls. The same polished floors. The same hum of efficiency persisted as staff settled into their routines. But today was different. Today, I didn't walk into my office, I was walking into a battleground. The reception area was unusually quiet, the type of silence that comes before a storm. They knew. The whispers had already begun. The story of my father's declaration during dinner had circulated quickly. Employees looked at me with uncomfortable looks, avoiding direct eye contact, unsure where their loyalty should rest. I did not acknowledge them. I strolled confidently, my heels tapping on the marble flooring, my stance solid. Never show them you are disturbed. I entered my office. Shutting the door behind me, I had exactly 15 minutes until my father and Ethan arrived, expecting them to take over as CEO and heir apparent respectively. 15 minutes before their entire strategy disintegrated in front of them. I sat at my desk, inhaled deeply, and then turned on my computer. The screen displayed a list of sensitive documents and contracts that they had never considered looking at and assumed did not matter. I opened my ownership records, lingering my hands over the keyboard for a moment before clicking on the file labeled Executive Shareholder Agreement. And then I waited. A strong knock on my door came at precisely 9 a.m. I did not bother answering. The door opened, and my father and Ethan strolled in, both exuding confidence. His, inborn. Ethan's, carefully crafted. My father walked in like a monarch surveying his realm, and Ethan, dressed in an expensive navy suit, flashed me a smug, triumphant grin. It took everything I had not to laugh. My father said, "Lisa," in his customary forceful tone, as if acknowledging me was a favor. "I assume you're aware of the transition happening today?" Transition. Interesting wording. "I'm aware," I replied easily, reclining back in my chair. I looked at Ethan, whose smirk became wider. "Good," my father said, nodding as if we all agreed. "Ethan will be stepping in as the new CEO. We'll need you to help with the handover, get him familiar with the operations before you officially move on." I raised an eyebrow. "Move on?" I repeated, faking ignorance. "Dad, I think you're mistaken about something." His face twitched with annoyance. He was used to my silent cooperation and ability to follow instructions. He was unprepared for this. "Lisa," he murmured, his voice tight, like if addressing a child. "This isn't up for debate, we've already made the decision." I smiled, a slow, knowing smile. "Oh, I know, Dad," I answered softly. "The thing is, you don't have the authority to make that decision." Ethan scoffs quietly and shakes his head. "Lisa, don't make this difficult, we're trying to do this the easy way." I did not respond. Instead, I went for my remote and clicked a button. The enormous screen on my office wall displayed a document that I had been examining earlier. Executive Shareholders Agreement signed on August 17, 2015. Signatories, Lisa Harper, James Harper, father, and Ethan Harper. My father's face paled somewhat. I turned to Ethan. "Do you even know what this document is?" He crossed his arms and shifted in discomfort. "A shareholders agreement?" he wondered. I nodded. "Yes. And do you know what it says?" I tapped the screen to highlight an important clause. This document was drafted when Harper & Company was restructuring. It clearly states that any transfer of executive power, such as appointing a new CEO, requires the approval of all majority shareholders. I caught my father's gaze. "And I, Dad, hold 60% of the company's shares." The hush that followed was smothering. My father's expression darkened. "That's impossible," Ethan whispered as he moved forward to examine the page. "Actually, it's very possible," I replied calmly. "You see, over the years, while you were busy failing at every startup you touched, and Dad was busy playing the role of business patriarch, I was doing something else." I leaned forwards. I was securing my place. I turned back to face my father. "Remember when you needed capital for expansion in 2017? You agreed to give me an additional 15% of your shares in exchange for my investment. And in 2019, when we had that court dispute, another 10% was transferred under my name as collateral, which you never bothered to reclaim. That, plus my original 35%, gives me the controlling stake. My dad's jaw clenched. But, Ethan? Ethan was in a panic. You have to be bluffing, he exclaimed. I took out a second document. This is the most recent legal filing with the state. Want to verify? Ethan took the paper and scanned it, his face losing color with every passing second. You can't do it, he muttered. Dad, tell her she can't do this? My father stayed silent. Because he knew. I had lawfully outmaneuvered him. And he couldn't do anything about it. I sighed softly and stood up. I'm not firing you, Ethan, I explained. I don't want to force you into the real job market, but you will report to me and work under my guidance. Otherwise? I motioned to the door. You're free to leave. Ethan looked at my father, his eyes begging, but for the first time in his life, my father had no response. There was no way to fix it, because it wasn't his company anymore. That was my. The silence in my workplace felt oppressive. Ethan still held the official document in his hand, his fingers white from holding it too firmly. My father remained motionless beside him, his expression unreadable. But I knew better. He was calculating, trying to figure a way out of this. There was not one. I had spent years preparing for this moment, not because I expected treachery, but because experience had taught me never to presume loyalty in situations of authority. For the first time in my life, my father didn't recognize me. Maybe he never had. Is that it? Ethan eventually spoke, his voice tinged with resentment. Are you just taking everything? I laughed softly, without humor. Are you taking everything? I repeated, moving closer to him. Ethan, I created this company from nothing. I made every contract, expansion, and innovation a reality. While you were busy failing above, I was keeping this company running. So no, I am not taking anything. I leaned in slightly. I'm just keeping what's already mine. Ethan's face contorted in rage, but he had no response. He knew I was correct. And worse, so did my father. He had spent years believing that bloodline was more important than skill. That his son would receive what was properly mine. He'd underestimated me. And now he had to pay for his folly. My father eventually ended the hush. You're making a mistake, Lisa. His voice was calm and calculated, but I could sense the pressure underlying. Families should stick together. Do you truly want to end this relationship? I met his eyes unflinchingly. Dad, I said, you burned this bridge the moment you made your decision without me. His lips form a thin line. Business is larger than one person, we can develop a solution that benefits everyone. I cocked my head slightly, simulating interest. Oh, I agree. I let the words hang in the air before proceeding. That's why I'm offering you both a choice. I went to Ethan first. You can stay with the company, I added, keeping my voice smooth and professional. But you will not be CEO. You will serve as an advisor with limited authority. Your compensation will be generous, but you will report to me. Ethan stiffened, but I did not stop. Or, I added, you can walk away. I will acquire your shares at market value. You can take the money and start working on a new project. My dad scoffed. You're acting like you hold all the cards. I smiled. I do. My words were followed by a dense hush. I let them sit in it, let them experience what it was like to be powerless. Finally, my father breathed, shaking his head in astonishment. I never thought you'd do this, he grumbled. Not to your own family. At his comments, I felt a searing pang. Not for your own family. I wanted to tell him he was the one who did it. That he chose to cast me aside, as if I were only temporary. But I did not. In the end, it didn't matter. What was important was that I would not let them remove what I had built. Not now. Not ever. Ethan was the first to storm out. Good riddance. I knew my brother well enough to anticipate his next action. He would approach our relatives and family acquaintances, presenting himself as a victim of corporate deception. I didn't care. I was not here to win their approval. I came here to win my future. My father waited for a while longer, as if expecting me to alter my mind. When I didn't respond, he nodded slowly. You've changed, he stated gently. I met his gaze. No, Dad. I just finally stopped pretending. Then he departed. I breathed and returned to my chair. I should have felt victorious. I had fought for my position, and won. But as I glanced at the vacant doorway, I sensed something else. A soft, lingering aching. A part of me had always wished for my father's approval. Some small, desperate part of me believed that if I worked hard enough and proved myself repeatedly, he would eventually see me. But he never truly looked. So now he had no choice but to see me for who I truly was. Not his daughter, not his temporary replacement. The genuine boss of Harper & Company. I returned to my computer, my attention changing. I had spent 12 years creating this business. Now I'd spend the next 12 years making it untouchable. My father and brother attempted to take everything from me. But in the end, they were the ones who had lost everything. For the first time in 12 years, my workplace felt empty. There were no phone calls from my father. Ethan sent no passive-aggressive emails, just silence. But silence did not indicate serenity. It meant the struggle had started. I knew my father wouldn't leave peacefully. And Ethan? He would fight tooth and nail to restore what he believed was his birthright. I wasn't naive enough to believe this was over. It had just begun. By the next morning, I could detect an undercurrent of discomfort in the company. Employees who had greeted me with confidence last week now appeared nervous. As if they were terrified to choose a side. Several department heads avoided eye contact. I knew exactly what was going on. My father and Ethan were using the Whisper network. Old family pals, board members, senior executives. They were spreading doubts, painting myself as frigid, ruthless, disloyal. Ethan, in particular, had taken on the character of the wounded son, betrayed by his sister. I could see him now, seated in a high-end restaurant, pretending to be sorry as he told our investors how I had taken the firm from him. And what about my father? He would not need to say much at all. Just a deep sigh. A shaky head. The neatly arranged words. I only ever wanted the best for my children. It was calculated. And risky. Because, if they could turn my board members and senior executives against me, they may force me out of my own company. At the very least, make my leadership impossible. I wasn't going to let that happen. That afternoon, I scheduled an emergency executive meeting. As I entered the boardroom, I could feel the tension in the air. Half of the room averted my gaze. The other half observed me too closely, waiting for me to slip. I took a seat at the head of the table. My seat. Let's not waste time, I added, my tone steady. I know there have been conversations, behind closed doors, over drinks, in hushed voices. I let my gaze sweep the room, pausing on each individual just long enough to cause them to squirm uncomfortably. I'm also aware that some of you are asking if my leadership is sustainable. Several folks tensed. Nobody spoke. I tapped my fingers on the polished wooden table. Let's clear that up now. I displayed a presentation on the screen behind me. Numbers, data, facts. I transformed this company from a struggling regional business to a $75 million industry leader. Under my leadership, we've increased sales by 300% over the last 5 years and entered 6 new markets. I turned to the CFO. Paul, do we have a single financial indicator suggesting this company is in trouble under my leadership? Paul hesitated before shaking his head. In fact, projections show another 20% growth in the next quarter. I nodded. So let's be honest about what's happening here. I leaned forwards. My father and brother are not unhappy because the business is faltering. They are not upset because I am failing to lead. They are furious because they expected me to step aside and let Ethan take over. Regardless of qualification. Regardless of the outcome. The room was silent. Then I dropped the true bombshell. I also know that some of you have been contacted in the last 24 hours, offered incentives to push for my resignation. I tilted my head slightly. If anyone here would like to disclose those conversations now, this is your chance. Several folks shuffled uncomfortably. Then, after a lengthy period, one of the senior executives cleared his throat. I received a call, he said. From your father. He said he was considering making an official appeal to the board. I nodded, not surprised. And did he offer anything in return for your support? A pause. Then, a slow nod. There it is. I breathed and stood up. My father built this company, I replied. I will not dispute that. But I went further than he could have. And I will not let him manage it from the outside. I let my voice drop slightly, controlled and threatening. If he wants a fight, he'll get one. I gathered my papers and looked each executive in the eyes. If anyone here believes my father and brother deserve control, now is the time to make your move. Silence. Nobody moved. Good. I turned and went away, head held high. It wasn't just about keeping my company. This was to ensure that they never imagined they could take it from me again. That night, I made my own call. Not to any board member, not for an investor. But what about the media? By morning, The business section of every major news outlet featured the following headline: Power shift at Harper & Co. Lisa Harper outmaneuvers family in boardroom battle. I'd made my move. Now it was their turn. And I waited. My inbox burst the morning after my story went to publication. Emails. I missed calls. Messages from reporters, investors, and board members. Some were supportive. Some were cautious. However, most of them had one question in common. Is it true? I let them wait. I knew what game my father was playing. He had spent decades mastering the art of public perception. He understood that reputation was important in business. If he couldn't beat me in the boardroom, he would undercut me in public. And that was exactly what he was attempting to do. By lunchtime, the first counterattack had arrived. A press release is nicely made, precisely phrased, but full of lies. Harper & Company has always been a family-owned business. We are disappointed by recent occurrences, but we remain dedicated to sustaining the ideals that have driven this organization. Changes in leadership are unavoidable, and we expect to transition seamlessly as we move forward. It was subtle. But I knew what it was actually saying. Lisa is irresponsible. Lisa is unstable. Lisa isn't a team player. I was not surprised. I was, however, incensed. I sat in my office, watching the news as industry analysts argued over my leadership. Was Lisa Harper too aggressive in her takeover? Will her lack of cooperation hurt the company in the long run? Can she recover from this PR disaster? They spoke as if I wasn't watching. As if I hadn't already planned my next move. Because if my father and Ethan desired a public conflict, I was planning to give them one. I did not release a statement. I did not call a press conference. Instead, I placed one phone call. To an old buddy in investigative journalism. I have something for you, I explained. But you'll need to move fast. An hour later, I emailed over documents. Emails. Financial reporting. Internal records. Evidence. Harper & Company, under my father's guidance, had engaged in unethical business activities throughout time. I had spent the previous decade quietly cleaning up. The news broke within 24 hours. Behind the scenes at Harper & Company, a legacy of hidden debts and financial cover-ups. The piece was brutal. It applauded my leadership for improving the company's financial situation. It was critical of my father's mismanagement, but most importantly, it proved that I was the sole reason Harper & Company had survived. Just like that. The narrative changed. The board has stopped doubting me. The investors stopped hesitating. And what about my father? He had nowhere to hide. 2 days later, my father finally contacted me. I let the phone ring 3 times before answering. Lisa, he murmured in a tense voice. We need to talk. I slumped back in my chair. Do we? Silence. Finally, a sigh. You didn't have to do that. I gave a tiny laugh. Neither did you? This company was supposed to be a legacy, he told me. For the family. For both of you. I had a familiar pain. A small, naive part of me had once desired that, but not anymore. Dad, I spoke gently. If you wanted me to safeguard the legacy, you should have trusted me with it. Instead, you attempted to steal it from me. Another prolonged stillness. He asked, almost reluctantly. What happens now? I breathed slowly. Now, I'm going to make sure you never touch my company again. The conflict was over. My father had lost. Ethan had vanished. And I'd won. However, when I sat in my office, staring out at the metropolitan skyline, I felt no happiness, no victory, just emptiness. I had spent the last 12 years fighting for Harper & Company, building it, safeguarding it, and making it stronger than ever. Nonetheless, the cost of that win outweighed my expectations. Because I had secured my position, I had misplaced something else along the road. My family. The next day, I came into the office as if nothing had happened. But everybody knew the truth. The whispers had ended. The doubt had dissipated. I was no longer simply Lisa Harper, CEO. I was Lisa Harper, the lady who outmaneuvered her father and brother and emerged victorious. Some people appreciated me for it. Some scared me because of it. And some were still waiting for me to fall. I let them wait. At midday, my father and I convened in the conference room for our final conversation. He seemed exhausted. Older, as if the weight of what had happened had finally fallen on his shoulders. I waited for him to speak first. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than I'd ever heard it. I'm retiring, he announced simply. Effective immediately. I did not react. I had anticipated this. I'll sell my remaining shares, He added. I'll keep a small percentage as an investor, but I won't be involved anymore. I examined him attentively. And Ethan? His jaw stiffened. He's gone, my father admits. Took the buyout? He won't be back. A part of me knew it would end like this. Ethan had never been strong enough to face his own difficulties. When he realized he had lost, he did what he always did. Run. Still, hearing it out made something inside me ache. No regret. Not guilty. Simply the finality of it all. I nodded. Understood. My father exhaled and rubbed his temples, as if he had a headache. Then, after a long gap, he said something unexpected. I underestimated you. It was not an apology, but it was as close as I'd ever come. And strangely, I realized I didn't need it anymore. A month later, Harper & Company looked nothing like it did previously. Who were the previous board members who supported my father and Ethan? Gone. What about the executives who had questioned my leadership? Replaced? The company had always performed well under my leadership. But now, it was absolutely mine. And with that control comes a new perspective. I introduced proposals that my father had consistently rejected. He has described modernized systems as unnecessary. He ventured into industries that he had previously avoided. Within 6 months, profits skyrocketed. Within a year, we had reached the $100 million milestone. For the first time in my life, I wasn't battling solely to prove myself. I was fighting to create something that no one could take from me again. A year later, I met my father for dinner. It was the first time we had talked since his retirement. He looked different. Quieter. He wasn't angry now. Simply accepting. I read about the latest deal you closed, he continued as he drank. It was a smart move. I smirked faintly. I know. A shadow of a smile appeared on his lips. There was no longer tension between us. There is no war left to fight. Just the simple, undeniable truth. He'd tried to push me aside. And I had proven him incorrect. He lifted his glass. To Harper & Company, he stated. This time, as I clinked my glass with his, I did not feel angry. I didn't feel resentful. Only tranquility. Because I'd already won. And I no longer needed his permission to know it. As I sit in my office now, overlooking the city where I built my empire, I reflect on the lessons this trip has taught me. That family might be your greatest adversary. Loyalty is a currency, not a promise. That power is never given. It's taken. But more importantly, sometimes, the finest method to prove your worth is to quit seeking validation and create something so powerful that they can never ignore you again. I don't have any regrets. Harper & Company are now mine. And I aim to make sure that no one forgets it. My husband is blind to his work wife, ruining our marriage. She manipulates him and even calls him her husband right in front of me. Original post, February 9, 2025. I, 31 female, am at my wit's end with my husband's, 32 male coworker Sarah, 30 female, and his complete inability to see what's happening. I'm not usually one for Reddit, but I need to know if I'm going crazy here. Where do I even start? 3 years ago, my husband Mark started working with Sarah. At first, I tried to be welcoming. I invited her to our BBQs, included her in group outings, and genuinely tried to be friendly. Big mistake. She spent the entire time making backhanded comments about everything from my career. Oh, you're just a yoga instructor? How peaceful. To my cooking. I guess not everyone can master basic seasoning. The real problem is that Mark thinks she's just being funny. Last month, she literally threw away the anniversary mug I gave him because it clashed with the office aesthetic. When I got upset, Mark said I was being too sensitive and that Sarah just has high standards for office decor. It was a mug with our wedding photo on it. Some greatest hits from Sarah. She scheduled a mandatory work dinner on our anniversary. She convinced Mark not to take a promotion because it would mean working with a different team. She posts daily photos of them together with hashtags like work power couple and work spouse. She tells everyone at their office that she takes better care of him than I do. She changed his coffee order and now tells everyone she trained him right. The worst part? My husband is completely blind to all of this. Yesterday, he actually told me about how Sarah said our new house, which we spent months searching for, was charming in a starter home kind of way. He repeated this while laughing. I tried talking to him about it, but Sarah has convinced him I'm just insecure. She's managed to insert herself into every aspect of our lives. They text constantly, even on weekends. She knows his schedule better than I do. She rearranged his entire desk and office wardrobe because his style was too suburban husband. That's what he is. Last week, I suggested marriage counseling. He looked genuinely confused. He of course went and talked to Sarah about it. I found out from another coworker that she's been telling people that Mark and I are going through a rough patch, and that she's just being a good friend by giving him someone to talk to. We weren't going through anything until she started this nonsense. The breaking point? I stopped by his office to surprise him with lunch. I know, but it was his birthday and Sarah was supposedly out sick. Guess who was there? Sarah. She'd miraculously recovered, and bought him a cake that said, "To my work hubby," with a photo of them from the office holiday party. She saw me and said, "Oh, Amy. You came too. How nice. Mark, you didn't tell me your real wife was coming. I'm not crazy, right? This woman is trying to destroy my marriage while my husband stands there grinning like it's all some big joke. What should I do? Divorce seems extreme, but I'm running out of options here. TLDR. My husband's work wife is actively trying to sabotage our marriage while he remains completely oblivious to her obvious manipulation. ETA. I should have stated that the promotion wasn't one that would increase his salary but his title. It would give him more leadership experience. It still blows my mind that he turned it down just so he could stay on the same team as her. ETA. I should have told the mug story in its entirety. She accidentally broke the mug. I noticed it was gone when I was visiting him one day and I asked him about it. He said she accidentally knocked it over and then later he repeated a joke she made about how it didn't fit the office aesthetic. Top comments. Comment 1. Sarah would not be able to sabotage your marriage if your husband wasn't allowing it. Comment 2. You have a husband problem. Go to counseling and get professional help to communicate your concerns. Remind him that he's married to you, not Sarah, so her opinions shouldn't matter when it comes to your marriage. Good luck, but be prepared for the worst. Comment 3. Yeah, this guy isn't oblivious, he's complicit. He knows what's happening, and he likes the attention. He is happy to let his girlfriend disrespect his wife. Update. February 13, 2025, 4 days later. Hi, I, 31 female, posted a few days ago. I really didn't expect my post to blow up the way it did. I got so overwhelmed by all the comments that I haven't responded to any. I want to address everyone who says it's fake. I understand why you think that, but this is my personal hell. I only listen to Reddit stories on TikTok, but when this reached its boiling point, I just needed a place to talk. So I made an account and tried to yell into the void. Well, the void turned out to be less empty than I thought. Now, to why everyone is here. The update. Before I talked to my husband, 32 male, I decided to do some investigation. I started with his phone and read all the messages between him and Sarah. She badmouthed me a few times. He did nothing to defend me but didn't engage either. She was flirty. He wasn't really flirty back. They talked a lot, and he praised her frequently for her work ethic and intelligence. I didn't see anything about cheating. I checked his email, nothing. I checked his work email, nothing. I looked through our other devices, nothing. I searched high and low for a second phone, nothing. Everything I found was always dancing that line. Nothing was outright cheating, but here are the things I found that did hurt my feelings. He has lunch with her, and only her, every day in the office. They don't really like anyone else, so they'll criticize others and say, "Let's talk more at lunch, they're serving XYZ today." He'd say things like, "I'm sure if you were a wife, you would XYZ." He always kept it as a wife, and not my wife, but it still upset me. She admitted to breaking the mug on purpose. He didn't get upset with her, just said, "Yeah, the photo gifs are kind of corny." I confronted him. I laid it all out, and while he wasn't upset, he did try to brush things off. He said I was being sensitive and overreacting. I told him if we didn't have a real conversation about this, I would file for divorce. That got his attention, and he sat down with me. He admitted that at first, he found it odd that Sarah was trying so hard. He saw her trying hard with all the men in the office. The more attention she gave him, the more he enjoyed it, and the more he responded, the more attention she gave, until she just had her sights on him. He knew some of the other men were envious, and he liked that too. He admitted that eventually, he just got too deep. He said he knew it was wrong but had gotten addicted to the attention and didn't want her to move on to another man. So he indulged her sometimes at my expense. He said it was just nice to have two women in the two major parts of his life, stating that he knew we'd rarely see one another, so what was the harm? He reiterated that he never ever physically cheated with her but admitted it could be called an emotional affair. It was painful, I won't hide that. I mean really painful, like I wasn't enough. I told him from this point on, he needed to stop communicating with Sarah and ask to be transferred or switch jobs altogether. Now folks, I mean it when I tell you this. He lost his shit. He began raising his voice, saying things like he never cheated. It was all above board, and I couldn't control who he talked with at work. He called me a narcissist and a control freak. He told me I had no idea how hard it was, how much stress he had in the office, and that his personal relationship with Sarah helps a lot. Taking it away would just damage his mental health. It got so bad that I started crying. I couldn't take it anymore and decided to leave. I packed a small bag and called my MIL. She's the only family I have here. I gave her a rundown of what was going on, and she offered her home to me. I'm staying here and just hoping my husband calms down so we can revisit this. I want to work it out. I love him more than anything. I will try harder to answer comments on this post, and I will definitely update if something new happens. This has been really therapeutic and makes me feel less alone. TLDR. I confronted my husband about his work wife, and he lost it on me. Now I'm staying with my mother-in-law. Top comments. Comment 1, Welp, I kind of figured he wasn't that clueless. This is a full-blown emotional affair. From experience, things will only escalate when they are in bed together. Protect your peace, because he sure doesn't give a damn about your feelings. Stay strong. Comment 2. Jumped right from admitted it could be called an emotional affair, to, he began raising his voice, saying things like he never cheated. OP made a valiant effort, but it doesn't seem like this marriage can be saved. Additional comments from OOP about her MIL. My mill is on my side and told me point blank that he is wrong. However, she said she doesn't want to get in the middle because she doesn't want to damage the relationship with either one of us. She told me I'm welcome as long as I need, but she won't bring anything up to her son until he brings it up to her. My MIL agrees his actions are wrong but doesn't want things to escalate or to damage her relationship with either one of us, so she is staying out of it unless he contacts her. As for my husband, he has tried to reach out. He's called, left message, texted. I let him know I was safe and left it at that. He will message or call every few hours, but we haven't talked. New update. Update 2, February 14, 2025, one day from previous update. Well, I'm back. First, I want to address some of the negative comments. To all the people saying they're Team Sarah, and hoping Sarah and my husband get together, I even saw a nasty comment saying Sarah and my husband would be the office power couple. How can you sit here and say nothing's going on? You claim my husband didn't cheat and I'm being crazy, yet in the same breath wish they would get together? You're contradicting yourself because deep down you know something romantic was developing. Now for the update. My husband came to my mother-in-law's house. She didn't call him. He knew I was there because I told him, and he said he wanted to talk. Some big things happened in such a short time. He wanted to explain. According to my husband, after I left, he started to reflect. He did call his mom and they had a long talk. I didn't know any of this. She asked him if he was happy with me and he said yes, but I made him extremely happy. I was a good wife and a great partner. This is kind of what sunk into him, that he was being juvenile for wanting attention from another woman. I did ask him why he always brushed things off and never took action before. He said he couldn't explain it, it just felt good. He assured me he never wanted to sleep with her and never advance things that way. It was just nice having someone around who was fawning over him, like a fan. For those who said he didn't know what an emotional affair was and was just agreeing with me, you were right. He admitted he didn't really understand what an emotional affair was, but after looking it up, he agreed that's what it was, though unintentional. He said he didn't want to lose his friend, so he just went along with a lot of what she did. He admitted he was deep into a fog, but me leaving and this conversation with his mom was the one thing that brought him out of it. He said he didn't want to fight. My husband is big on giving me my space, so when I left he didn't chase after me because he thought it would be best for us to just cool down and think about this and hopefully come back and discuss it more rationally. He did reach out to Sarah. Though they didn't meet in person, they had a phone call. He told her they couldn't remain as close, that their out-of-office texts and calls needed to stop, that he would get a replacement mug she wasn't to touch, and that they needed to cut back on their lunches. He wanted to handle this before talking to me, to show he was serious. Sarah didn't take it well. She started berating me, saying I was forcing him to do this. My husband stopped her and said no. He was doing this because his marriage was important. He admitted letting things go too far but clarified he had no romantic interest in her. He told her if she had feelings for him, she needed to distance herself immediately. Sarah ended up ruining their friendship herself. Though my husband was willing to maintain a more distant friendship, her comments about me and him, claiming she'd never want him and that everything she did was because she knew we weren't meant to be together, and she was trying to open his eyes. He said he couldn't believe he'd never seen how vindictive and awful she was. She was almost venomous. It didn't end well. After handling that situation, he came to see me, wanting to ensure I knew he understood and was taking the proper steps. He said we could do whatever I needed. I know some of you will say I'm wrong, that divorce is the only option because he had an emotional affair. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I'm not divorcing my husband. I told him we needed counseling for both of us. Yes, going through all his devices, emails, and texts might have been extreme. He agreed it felt like a breach of privacy but understood given the circumstances. I told him we both needed to work on things. As of right now, I guess you could say that we're separated. We're not staying in the same house. We're going to attend counseling. I don't want to just jump back into things with him. I don't want it to seem like it was okay to make me feel like I was the second option to ignore all those red flags and to brush me off. This has to be worked on. I'm leaving his mother's house and staying with a friend. I'm not sure if anyone's going to want an update after this. Sorry it's so anticlimactic. Sorry it's typical. Oh, you just got back together. I mean it is but it isn't. I love my husband. I know he loves me. I don't think everything is an end-all be-all. Yes, it's a terrible situation. Yes, he did a terrible thing, but I want my marriage to last, so we're giving it another go. I genuinely hope this is my last update, but if it's not, y'all will know. Thank you for all the messages. All the support for everything really has been a huge help. Top comments. Comment 1. Honestly, this was the update I was hoping for. I'm happy he recognized it and that you two are working for your marriage. All the best, and I hope your marriage is stronger after this episode. Comment 2. Glad to hear that the fog is lifting. I hope he sticks to his word and distances himself from Sarah. I would even involve HR to let them know what is going on in case she gets vindictive and tries to cause trouble at work. I'm happy to hear that you're proceeding cautiously. I hope everything goes well for you in the end. Third update. Update 3. February 18, 2025, 4 days from previous update, but removed due to posting too many updates. Hi Reddit, we are continuing our work-wife saga. As a lot of you predicted in my last update, Sarah wasn't happy about my husband ending their friendship and trying to put a distance between him and her. I seriously thought she was going to reach out to me, but she never did. Why? Because this was never about me. I was not even on her radar except for somebody to tear down. I will give Sarah one thing. She is extremely efficient. She started her campaign long before Monday morning. Over the weekend she reached out to several of my husband's coworkers, mostly male. She told them that my husband had randomly stopped being friends with her and she suspected it was my fault. She said she couldn't believe it. Everyone knew how close they were. She just felt bad for him. Wanted to be a friend for him and hopefully help him out of our terrible marriage. She went on and on about how she couldn't believe how much this is going to affect her during her working hours and that she didn't know if she can continue working at this job. One of the female workers at my husband's job messaged me all of this. As a lot of you predicted, she is gearing up to accuse my husband of sexual harassment. Monday alone she has put herself in the path of my husband multiple times. It kind of feels like she's setting up to do something, and he said she had an argument because she's doing a lot of odd things, at least according to my husband. Think stuff like intentionally following my husband into a room or a section of the office that is somewhat closed off, accidentally emailing him or forwarding him things, going to his cubicle multiple times a day for no reason, sitting close to him in meetings. It seems harmless, but really it feels like she's gearing up for something. My husband did go to HR first thing Monday morning, and like I kind of thought, they pretty much said they can't do anything unless it affects work or working hours. His HR is not the greatest. He did let them know what she was doing today, but honestly, I don't think they took him seriously. We've been thinking about moving. The only thing that keeps us here is really his mom, so he might just transfer jobs? We're not really sure. I hope things don't escalate anymore, and since he went to HR already, I'm hoping that nothing big happens. I'd like to give a little update about our counseling. To all the people who tell me that I'm making a mistake by giving my husband another chance and trying to work it out. I am so happy I don't listen to you. I understand it was a shitty situation. I lived through it. I know it is. I know how it felt. But counseling has revealed a lot about my husband that I didn't even know. Apparently he was bullied severely in high school and he kind of went through a little glow up when he went into college. Sarah is definitely one of those stereotypical blonde pretty girls, and my husband admits that it did kind of feel like he finally got his chance to be popular in a social setting. My husband admitted that Sarah basically mirrored everything about him. He likes his dislikes. She talked to him like he walked on water. It definitely sounded like she was boosting his ego in a manipulative fashion. Like I said, I understand this isn't just a forgive and move on kind of situation, but hearing my husband talk about how it felt the way it affected him, it made me have a lot more sympathy for him. I still haven't come back home, but we're doing it one day at a time. I went and had lunch with him on Monday and I'm going again today. I'm trying to be there for him so he doesn't feel alone. I'm really ready for all this to die down. I'm hoping it doesn't get taken farther at work, but if it does, we'll deal with it. OP, your husband should be documenting everything, in writing, as it occurs. And then, provide it to management. In addition, a consultation and possible engagement of a seasoned labor law employment attorney. My parents have chased away every boyfriend I have ever had. How can I prevent this from ruining my relationship with my current boyfriend? Original, February 13, 2025. I was very shy during high school and didn't leave my house unless I had to, so as a result I didn't get a boyfriend until my freshman year of college. After 7 months of dating my first ever boyfriend, I brought him to my parents' house for dinner, just so they could meet him. I had to step away for roughly 10 minutes to help my older sister with her baby, and when I came back, my BF, then 20 male, and my dad, old, were having a full-blown fistfight. We managed to stop them and my BF stormed off without saying anything, while my dad insisted my BF was incredibly rude and disrespectful to him and my mother and that a guy like that was no good for me, because he'd just end up doing the same thing to me. I was shocked that my BF could do such a thing because he had always been extremely sweet and I've never met or heard of anyone not liking him, but when I called him and told him what my dad had said about what happened, all he did was laugh and say I can believe whatever I want, before blocking me on everything. I was deeply disturbed by this, but my mom and sister insisted that he had just shown his true colors, and said my dad saved me from an abuser. I reluctantly accepted this, but something about it felt really off. I met my second boyfriend several months later, during my sophomore year. Part of me still felt my parents were part of the problem with my last BF, so I managed to get him to wait an entire year before introducing him to my parents. From the moment she laid eyes on him, every word my mom spoke to him was dripping with fake friendliness and subtle jabs implying she did not approve of him, which made him visibly uncomfortable. While we were eating dinner, she began asking me why I decided to date my BF, and asked about other guys and why they didn't work out. Some of the guys she asked about were completely made up. At this point it was clear what they were trying to do, and I silently vowed to talk to my boyfriend and tell him how my parents were trying to sabotage me. Unfortunately, it didn't get that far, as my dad chipped in and demanded to know how a boy, who couldn't support himself financially, was ever going to support his daughter. Mind you, we were both juniors in college at this point, and both of us were working part-time jobs. So this question was really insane. He responded by saying he'd already decided he wanted nothing to do with this family and was planning to break up with me when he got home, but he's just going to leave now. Within minutes, he was gone and I was blocked. Again. My parents insisted they did nothing wrong and just wanted to test his confidence as any parents would, but I pointed out that this was the second boyfriend they chased away, and they didn't do anything to scare off my older sister's husband. I went low contact with them after that, but fast forwarding a little bit, I eventually allowed them to gaslight me into introducing them to my third boyfriend, whom I had met towards the end of my senior year, and basically the same thing happened. I had made it through college unable to find a long-term BF, purely because of my parents. I did meet my current boyfriend, 28 male, 2 years ago, and I have managed to avoid introducing him to my family thus far. If he ever brought it up, I would always have a ready-made excuse prepared to explain why it wasn't possible, which has been pretty easy because he usually only asks about them when planning for major holidays. I have fallen madly in love with him and hope to start a family with him one day, but he recently told me that he can't even allow me to move in with him until he's had a chance to meet my family. I do not know what to do, as I know my parents will make it their mission to break us up if they meet him, but based on his insistence on meeting them, I realize I can't put this off any longer. Usually, relationships end because of something one person in the relationship says or does, and it's incredibly unfair that I always end up single because of things I cannot control. I want to tell my BF about my parents and insist that meeting them is a bad idea, but I've listened in on some of his conversations with his friends, and the general consensus among them seems to be that a girl with a super dysfunctional family is a massive red flag, and an indicator of what their married life would be like. So I come here asking, how do I approach the problem that is my parents without risking losing the longest relationship I've ever had? If my parents end up being the cause of yet another breakup, I just don't know what I'll do. I just don't know. Edit. Wow, I made this post about an hour before going to bed, but woke up to quite a few comments here. Thank you so much to everyone who has helped me realize what I need to do. I've read through all of the comments and saw some recurring questions come up that I wanted to address. I am not fully in contact with my parents primarily because they helped me a lot financially during college and when I first graduated and was looking for a job. When I went low contact with them, they constantly yelled at me for being ungrateful and said family does not turn on each other over minor disagreements involving boys. It sounds ridiculous when I type it here, but after months of this treatment, when I found myself faced with the decision to either tell them I forgive them so they'll pay for my dorm room, or refuse to forgive them and have to move back home, I ended up caving. Why didn't I stand up for my past BFs when I saw them being verbally abused? I don't know. I've never been allowed to talk back to my parents, so the thought of calling them out while we have company over is not something I realized I could do, I guess. My arguments with them after they ran off BF 2 and 3 were the only times I've ever come into full conflict with them in my entire life. I will be going to my boyfriend's house today after work, and will tell him everything. I am terrified he will still want to meet them, just thinking about it has me shaking at my desk. But you all are right. He has a right to know and make his own decision. Edit 2. I told him and even showed him this post. To make a long story short, he still would like to meet them but thanked me for telling him, as he always figured something was seriously wrong. My parents host dinners for our family every Sunday, and we will be attending this one. I suppose I'll make a new post with an update afterwards. Top comments. Comment 1. You stop bringing anyone you like around them. Period. Tell your boyfriend why. They get weird and run anyone you date off with their nonsense and you'd rather just avoid them altogether. My boyfriend knows all about my dysfunctional family and abusive upbringing. It didn't run him off. If anything, it brought us closer as he empathized. ETA. We just celebrated 6 years together. The right partner won't hold your family against you. You couldn't choose them, after all. Comment 2. If your plan is to stay with him in the long run, you have 2 options. 1. Come clean about why you don't want them to meet and explain exactly why you're scared of them meeting, or 2. Cut off your parents entirely and tell your boyfriend you cut them off. Ideally, either way you end up telling him why you chose what you chose. Good relationships take communication, and if your boyfriend doesn't know why he's being kept away from your family, that most likely will be the reason you break up. Update, February 18, 2025, 5 days from original update. I meant to make this update a lot sooner, but since my last post a lot has happened. I truly appreciate all the comments I received calling me out for hiding my parents being insane from my BF and encouraging me to be honest with him. My boyfriend is pretty involved now, so I guess I should give him a fake name. I will call him Ethan. I sat Ethan down and told him about my parents and how they ran off my previous boyfriends, before showing him my original post as many recommended. Fortunately, he did not seem to care that I hadn't told him, but he did agree with many commenters that my parents were more than just insane. They were outright abusive. Although he understood how I felt, he still said he would like to meet them, both to see it for himself, but also because he felt there was an underlying reason for their behavior. My parents have dinner for the family every Sunday, which I have been attending on the weeks that I'm not hanging out with Ethan that day, so we agreed that he would come to the next one. When Sunday came and we arrived at my parents' house, my anxiety was through the roof. Ethan had agreed to leave with me the moment things started to get out of hand, but with my parents that could have easily been as soon as we walked through the front door. My parents were surprisingly very nice, though. My dad actually seemed excited to see Ethan, and my mom fawned over her daughter bringing home such a handsome, confident-looking man. I couldn't understand what was happening. Ethan even shot me a look a couple times, as if to silently ask if he was missing something, because my parents were actually lovely. I want to provide a play-by-play of the entire night, but the post would just be too long. The point is, my parents had done a complete 180 from their previous behavior, and it made me look and feel crazy for trying to warn Ethan about them ahead of time. During dinner, my mom said she was so happy to see her daughter had finally found someone who wasn't judgmental and was willing to give me a chance because of the person I am today, because the past doesn't matter. My heart dropped. What was she talking about? Ethan said he does not know about anything in my past that may be cause of concern, and my parents exchanged a concerned look, as if it was rehearsed. My dad asked him why he thinks my previous relationships failed, and he said that he was under the impression they got scared away after meeting my parents. My mother looked at me with disappointment on her face and said, "Oh P, is that really what you told him?" I was at a loss for words, but Ethan was not. He said that it's pretty clear they are trying to plant seeds of doubt in him about our relationship, but he is not interested, as he knows me well enough to know my character and that even if there was something serious in my past, parents who loved and supported me or even just wanted grandchildren would keep it a secret to avoid ruining my relationship. My dad said he already has 2 grandchildren, and motioned towards my sister, who did not have her kids with her that evening. Ethan said my dad must have been very supportive of my sister for her to be able to start a family while he tries to run off any guy I bring home, And my dad's response was very casual, but extremely shocking. He said, "Of course, she's actually mine." Everyone was quiet for a few moments, until Ethan spoke up and said that now all of the abuse they've only put me through is starting to make sense. My mom said he's spouting nonsense, and that I have not been abused in any way. She then looked at me and admitted her marriage had a rocky start, but both her and my father have moved past that. I was too busy replaying my entire life in my head to say anything. The previous boyfriends, the lack of support for my social outings growing up, the volleyball games I had to have a friend drive me to because my parents were always too busy, the rage I was always at risk of facing if I ever spoke my mind. All while my sister got the opposite. I started to cry, the hardest I ever have. Ethan immediately announced that we were leaving. My dad demanded we stay where we are so we can clear things up, but Ethan ignored him as he pulled me out of my chair and led me away. My mom screamed at me not to leave, and that this guy was trying to isolate me from my family. I yelled back that if anyone had been trying to isolate me, it was her, for my whole life. As we drove back to Ethan's place, my mom sent me several text messages cussing me out, saying one mistake doesn't change the fact that my dad loved, supported, and raised me, and that he would always be my real father. Ethan said he's not my dad, he's an abusive, controlling asshole who was taking his insecurities out on me. I ended up blocking both of my parents' numbers because they were saying some truly awful things to me, both about myself and Ethan. Ethan said he was expecting them to be crazy, but this was far worse than he could have anticipated. He said I need to go into therapy immediately, and that he will pay for anything my insurance doesn't cover. My parents showed up at my apartment twice yesterday to demand I come out and speak to them, but I've been staying at Ethan's all weekend and will likely be here all week. I'm not sure if this is the update y'all wanted. I had countless people enraged at me for being spineless and not standing up to my parents, and while I had planned on doing so, that's not what happened. I don't know what is going to happen with my parents, or where I go from here. But now that the holiday is over, I can spend some time looking for a good therapist. Top comments. So your mom cheated on your dad and you are the affair baby and they treated you poorly because of that. Is that the story, or has my reading comprehension failed me? Maybe you have a great father out there somewhere. 23andMe? Ethan sounds great. The truth shall set you free. My stepdaughter's prank went too far, causing a major conflict in our family. Now, my marriage and relationship with her may never be the same. I know the title sounds bad, but please read and throw away plus fake names. I, 38 million, married Judd, 44 feet, a few years ago, and I acquired a stepdaughter, Abby, 14 feet, as a result. I dated Judd when Abby was 8, met her when she was 9, and married Judd when she was 10. I'd say our relationship is okay. She doesn't act bratty towards me and respects me enough as her mom's husband. However, there is one glaring issue about her, and that is her pranking nature. Abby loves to pull pranks. Some examples are her hiding my car keys with what looked like 100 dubs in a box. I found them quickly because she failed to notice my keys have duct tape on them. Another one is when she hid in the fridge, something I still find very weird, to scare the first person who opened it. Well, last Wednesday, I arrived home and it seemed that I was the only one there. Only my shoes were at the doorstep, and I even called out Judd's and Abby's names with no answer. This is somewhat normal as Judd sometimes works late and Abby stays at school for extracurriculars. So I screwed around with my dog, a German Shepherd and Husky mix for anyone that will ask, for a bit, and then I decided to relieve myself. When I got to the bathroom, I noticed that the window cabinet was open. I thought nothing of it at first and unzipped my pants, but then I saw a shadow behind the shower curtains. I thought the worst and immediately punched the figure behind the curtains. Well, as everyone may have guessed from the title, it was Abby. She was making a prank video and I had not noticed that she propped her phone up on the bathroom cabinet with 2 cups. I'm not gonna lie, I did not hold back. I punched her as hard as I could. Her nose looked broken, and when I realized it, I flipped out, and so did she. After maybe 5 minutes of freaking out, I drove her to urgent care and informed Judd of the situation. Her nose was indeed broken and would need about 6 to 12 weeks of recovery. Abby won't talk to me, and as for Judd, she thinks that my action may have been justified, but also thinks I should have approached with more caution, which she has refused to elaborate on. So AITA? Comments. Comment 1. NTA. Get a copy of the video. If Abby starts bitching to people about how her stepdad broke her nose, you are looking at jail time. Get and keep a copy of the evidence that she startled you while you were peeing. You need to sit Judd and Abby down and have a serious conversation. Filming without consent while someone is in the bathroom is a massive invasion of privacy and illegal in many places. If she did this to another kid, it could be considered child PRN. While you are in the bathroom, You feel vulnerable with having your pants down, genitals out. Those feelings increase the fight-flight part of the brain, and that you react on instinct. Please tell Abby that you love her, and never meant to hurt her. Comment 2. And why would a young girl think pranking her stepfather in the bathroom is ever a good idea? She should at least be talked to about pranking anyone in the bathroom, especially with a video? Comment 3. This is so unfortunate. People get killed for this. She's lucky she's alive. That's the normal reaction. To fight. As messed up this is stuck firmly because this is a life lesson. Play stupid games and win stupid prizes. Fortunately it's all on tape, right? So you're protected. What she did is actually what's unforgivable. Her dumb antics are gonna get someone killed or put in jail. Her mother needs to address this. Not one more prank. Ever. Comment 4. How stupid does a 14-year-old have to be to not know that recording someone in the bathroom without their consent is a very bad idea? And what was the stupid prank? Boo, I scared you, so I'm gonna put your reaction and PP on social media. Hey. NTA, but you might want to get legal advice lawyer before a false, and more sinister version gets circulated. Comment 5. As a teacher, I can say that 14-year-olds are indeed very uninformed. Had a 14-year-old once who took 30 minutes to go to the bathroom. When he finally came back, because he was a kid who didn't usually cause trouble, and I was worried, I privately asked, "What the heck took so long?" His response? "I was waiting for people to leave the bathroom." I still didn't get it, so he elaborated. If you use a stall, you're probably trying to shit or do something that you need privacy for, and other people will see your feet under the stall and try to film you by putting their phones over the walls of the stall. I started requiring that students trade their phones for the hall pass after that. Also told the administration, but they didn't do anything. Point is, yes, teenagers are that uninformed that behavior like this doesn't click as being problematic. Update. 12 days later. Well, this blew up big time. Let's address a few things. Abby's pranking nature isn't just situated on me, she has pulled pranks on her friends, the neighbors, and at school. The school has called Judd several times about this as they have resulted in mild vandalism. The refrigerator prank. She was 11 when that happened, not a grown teenager. It was a brand new and very large fridge that my uncle bought and showed it off to everyone. So she climbed in until he opened it again. Judd yelled at her saying that she could have suffocated in there and took her outside to scold her for a few hours. The video itself. The video doesn't show the toilet at all, just the shower curtain. However, the issue still remains that this was a massive invasion of privacy. The video has been deleted and Abby has admitted it was purely her fault. The update. It's been a chaotic week. Judd still refused to elaborate on how the situation should have been handled. I showed the post as a result and she did a 180 turn. She suddenly thought it may be time to stage an intervention and I agreed. We brought some of her friends as well as my cousin's wife Jess. Jess is an officer from another state and Abby seems to respect her. In this intervention we state how we were each affected by her various pranks and how in turn they affected her. Jess also spoke about how much of these pranks border on criminal territory, meaning she could be arrested or face retaliation. It seemed to have gotten to her and Abby cried a bit and promised to do better. When everybody else left, Jess stayed behind and brought to our attention about a disciplinary camp that we could send her to. The program is 6 weeks long and involves group therapy, individual therapy and constructive projects, whatever that means, and is held at a university campus. The program apparently has good reviews. Judd seems dead set in sending her to figure out her core problems. I'm a little hesitant about sending a kid away from home, but I'm the step-parent so I got no say. Edit, update. Okay, I swear Judd must be following my posts because now she's taking back what she said and is now thinking about doing what I and you fellow Redditors suggested in the first place, weekly therapy. So we agreed that I'm gonna find a therapist and I'm gonna front the bill for it since she didn't take this seriously in the first place. Comments. Comment 1. The program apparently has good reviews. Try to get more than just reviews. The troubled teen industry is pretty horrifying. There's a troubled teen subreddit for survivors. It's brutal. Oop. I'm aware, that's why I'm hesitant about this. Comment 2. Oh, thank God, I'm glad you're aware of the troubled teen industry. My heart sank so low when I read that your friend was suggesting it. Maybe it's legit, but I do feel it's a bit of an extreme response. Abby seems like a mostly good kid who just has this one stupid thing that's got stuck in her brain, normal teen stuff. I find it interesting that Judd did a 180 after reading a post, and now seems to be going from one extreme to the other, no real punishment to all punishment. I would think a bit more about that. I realize you're a step-parent and likely have no say in how Abby is parented, but I find it very concerning that your wife seems to be so easily influenced by outsiders. Honestly, if Abby's able to keep to her word to, if not end her pranks entirely, at least tone it down, I'd say you're all in the clear. Maybe suggest to Judd that you keep this program in reserve in case she needs it, and that she has a chance to prove she's learned her lesson first. Comment 3. Sent away seems extreme. Have you looked into this program? Is it held at a religious college? She might just end up abused at some of these types of teen rehabilitation camps and also just exposed to kids that are worse. I realize it might not be your call, but I would suggest try local therapy first way before sending a kid off. And I agree. Sending a kid away from home will probably just damage them more. But Judd seems intent on dishing out the harshest punishment immediately, thinking that this will nip it at the bud. Or she doesn't want to be seen as an enabler. She changed opinions real fast when I showed her the original post. New update, 7 months later. Well, it's been 7-ish months and there have been a few developments. Let's address some more things before getting there. Up until recently I have been still getting DMs asking why is this brat still in my house, why am I friends with Jess, and why did I name my wife Judd in my posts. I was drinking when I made my first post. I saved a draft and went back to it after a few hours of sobering up, fixing a bunch of grammatical mistakes but clearing some got overlooked and it just stuck. I was planning on calling her Judy. Jess and I are not friends. She is married to my cousin who I do have a good relationship with, as well as their 2 daughters and Jess's daughter. Jess has a serious problem with boundaries. As for why Abba was still living with me, you have to understand, I, her stepfather, broke Abby's, my stepdaughter's, nose. If word got out it would look really bad, I would be seen as an abuser and may have even been arrested. Several comments have pointed out how I should have saved that video for my own safety. I was pretty much going insane at that point and my wife thought nothing of it, thinking I should have just let this go until I showed her my original post. To be honest, I wanted to keep the intervention that we had smaller, that didn't involve her friends, because I felt they did not need to know about it. I just wanted her grandparents and Jess to show up, but I was convinced otherwise. Update. We decided that we would send Abby to weekly therapy. We were under the agreement that I would find and pay for it, and if it worked my wife would pay me back. It did work. Abby improved by a lot. She has realized how much damage she has done and is working to improve things. She has even begun to do volunteer work as well, which I didn't think she would do. She has apologized profusely, realizing how disgusting her prank was. She has also deleted her TikTok account, claiming that's where she got all the ideas from. We decided we would get her a new smartphone for her birthday 3 months ago for the improvement she's shown. We took away all smart devices as punishment. I don't think I mentioned that before. As for me and my wife, I gave her an ultimatum. Since therapy worked for Abby, it would be time we go to couples therapy or else we separate. We were having problems before this whole incident showed up, and now it kinda has to be forced. Past 2 years we've been living more like roommates and her enabling behavior is finally causing things to fall apart. She reluctantly agreed. It ended up being short-lived. She spoke during our sessions how I take things out of proportion and I went too far posting the incident online. She revealed that she was indeed following my posts, and that's why she changed her mind about the camp. Our therapist then asked us both if we loved each other at all. I was honest and said yes, but it's becoming difficult. My wife on the other hand said she was in love with the idea of me. I needed a minute if I heard that right, and she went on how I was apparently a catch. I was younger than her, had a stable job and owned a house, and she thought my loyalty was a bonus. I don't why, but I asked her if she cheated on me and she said no. But it doesn't matter, she just revealed that she settled for me. I filed for divorce 2 months ago. We had a prenup, so things are going smoothly other than her erroneously claiming some jewelry is hers, but my lawyer seems to think that it should be finalized within 1 to 2 months. So my Subex has moved out along with Abby. My dog misses them, she just sits by the door waiting for hours for them to come back. Subex is not happy about how things have progressed. She has been calling me a spineless bastard who couldn't just tolerate how things are, and has been saying to everyone who will listen. But behind closed doors she's been blaming Abby for her divorce, claiming it was her behavior that caused it. I know this because she has called me and texted me semi-regularly. Abby is living with her grandparents because apparently her mother can't deal with her right now. I actually liked my in-laws. They were real good people and they apologized for their daughter's actions and even offered to reimburse me for Abby therapy sessions. They told me that they were going to take care of Abby because it seems her mother has finally lost it. I spoke with Abby and assured her that this wasn't her fault. Chances are we were going to divorce regardless. She then told me that she didn't want me to leave and that I was the closest thing to father she ever had. This surprised me. I never really saw myself as a parental figure for Abby. I only really did the minimal. Outside of that, I just paid for school events, supplies, and would carve out some time for her, but I did leave it up to her if she wanted to spend time with me. I told her that maybe when she turns 18 we can pick up where we left off, but until then I don't think we can see each other. Her mother would definitely try to keep her away from me, and to be honest, I need some time away from Abby as well. Things are so quiet at home that it's relaxing. So there you go, I don't even care if my CBEX finds this post. TLDR. Sent Abby to therapy, it worked, but now me and her mother are divorcing and things are just falling apart. Comments. Comment 1. I figured this was where this was headed. Good for you, you deserve better OP, and congrats on being smart enough to get a prenup. OP. You know, when I brought up the prenup she was hesitant and took about 4 months to get her to sign it. Guess that alone should have screamed problems. Comment 2. So your ex-wife didn't get the idea that if she loved you and invested in being more than a roommate, you two would still be married? Like, what's the deal here? To your ex, not you. Advice. Get your dog another dog to be busy. He will forget them at some point. Might also search for a dog daycare somewhere so he can meet other pet friends. OP. Honesty. I think she is just incapable of forming a relationship beyond a superficial one at this point. As for my dog, I did hire a dog walker for her during the day after they moved out. Guess I'll look into doggy daycare too. My broke best friend refused a job at my restaurant, saying being a server is low and not respectable. Original post. This happened just before. My friend is broke, he hasn't worked in over a year, he's running out of savings and has even had to ask his parents to support him. I asked him many times why he doesn't try to get a job that's not in his field. He's got a computer science degree but has never worked in the field a single day in his life since graduating. He's turned down lots of jobs for reasons. They don't pay him enough, they won't give him a higher up position right off the bat, etc. I'm well aware he's deluded in that sense, but he has many other good qualities, and that's why I love the guy. So since graduating, the only job he's done is share marketing, something like online investing, in Forex. He said he made about $20 a day and that it was enough for him. He's single, lives in a shared house and doesn't spend much. Whatever makes him happy, right? The thing is, he's totally broke. I don't think he really is making even $20 a day on the shares because he's run out of money. He's stressed out and won't stop complaining about money problems. This is confusing for me, and I think it comes down to his pride not allowing him to get a job that's not fit for his ego. Now, I work as a server in a very nice restaurant and have offered him a job as a server many times. I have a great relationship with my boss, and after telling him my friend's situation, he didn't hesitate to say he wanted to help and would like to offer him a full-time job. My friend has been turning it down for months without really giving much of an explanation. Today he called me saying his parents have cut him off and asked to borrow money from me. I said that as a personal rule I do not lend money to anyone, but that he was welcome to start working tomorrow with me. He again turned down the offer, and I got a bit frustrated because I'm offering him a solution to his money problem, but he won't accept it. So we got into a bit of a banter and he finally confessed he thinks being a server is low and doesn't get you people's respect. I told him respect is earned by getting off your ass and doing whatever you have to make ends meet. I asked him if he thinks I'm low and he backpedaled, saying he didn't mean I in particular was low, but the job itself was. He then straight out told me nobody can respect me working as a waiter in my 30s. Wow. TBH. I'm pretty upset. He thinks I am low for working as a server? I got a degree too, but I couldn't find a job in my field, so I had to take the first job I could. I'm not some prissy prick thinking I'm too good to serve others. I take pride in being a waiter and doing a great job. I'm so hurt by his comments. Why is he my friend if he thinks I'm low? I didn't want to say something nasty or get into an argument with him, so I only told him he was being very offensive and I felt like he needed time to think about what he said to me. He replied saying there was nothing to think about, then gave me a list of low jobs like street sweeper, cleaner, etc., and said it's a fact those are low, not respected jobs. I asked him to apologize before this snowballed into a full-blown argument, and he said he stood by what he said. I don't want to overreact, but I don't know if we can keep being friends after this. I really don't know what to do. I don't want to badmouth him, but he should examine his life and learn empathy. I'm a very easygoing and forgiving person, but what he said hurt me and was idiotic. The man who refuses to work is calling me low. I don't know what to do. TL.dr friend is broke. I offered him a job in a restaurant, but he turned it down saying it is low and not a well-respected job. Top comments. Comment 1. Honestly, be happy he didn't take the job. Because with that attitude he wouldn't have lasted long and tarnished your rep with it. I don't want to overreact, but I don't know if we can keep being friends after this. Honestly, don't keep him as a friend. Doesn't seem that you get much out of the friendship anyway. Comment 2. Funny. Pompous ass is too good to work as a waiter but isn't above asking to borrow money from a waiter because he's too pathetic to go earn a living to take care of himself. It's easy. Take the job off the table because it's not appreciated or respected by him and it will only end bad for you and your generous boss. Don't lend your friend anything and let him figure out his problems on his own. Simple life lesson coming. Update. iReddit November 24, 2018. Next day. I made this post yesterday asking for advice on how to handle the situation with my friend. Basically, he's very broke and his parents have cut him off. I've been offering him a job in the restaurant I work in for months and he always turned it down. His situation got so bad he came to me yesterday asking to borrow money. I don't lend money to anyone as a rule, but I told him there'll always be a plate of food for him in my house and he was welcome to accept the job offer and start working with me the very next day. Well, long story short, we had a bit of an argument, if you can call it that, and he finally confessed he thinks being a server is low and won't earn him people's respect. In an interesting turn of events, he called me today and said he'd thought it through and had decided he's willing to accept the job only with one condition, as if he was the one doing me the favor, that he's to be made manager right off the bat and that he should move in with me so that I can drive him to work because the bus from his house to my workplace takes 35 minutes and that's over an hour of commuting a day. He then suggested I move my youngest daughter into my elder daughter's room so that there's an empty bedroom for him in my house. So he obviously had given this some thought. I was dumbfounded. The sense of entitlement and the level of pride you gotta have to make those demands is astonishing. I know he's never had a proper job, but he's not stupid. He has to know you can't be made manager if you don't even know the names of their dishes or how to serve a coffee. It's all about his pride. He's got an ego bigger than I thought. He can't be humble enough to accept a waiter job and work things out from there. He needs to be made manager so that it won't hurt his pride as much. I was so out of words I said I don't want to talk and hung up. I can't explain how off-putting that conversation was. I feel repelled by him. I feel disgusted, as if something has changed inside me. I can't have a person like him in my life. What makes a person refuse all help just out of sheer pride? My wife says I've been patient and kind enough to him throughout the years and I should let him figure things out on his own. He really is broke. Before his parents cut him off, they were covering his rent bills and he survived on the $20 a day he claimed to be making investing in Forex. I know he barely eats and can't even afford a new pair of shoes, and some other stuff. I know he's got no money, but then why won't he accept the job? He's not shy, has no mental health issues, and has no problem dealing with people. He's refused many other jobs in the past. Even jobs related to his degree, computer science. He's got the wrong idea that he should be given higher up positions right from the start because he's him, and that's what he deserves. That's the reason he hasn't worked a single day since graduating like a decade ago. Anyway, I've gone to do some deep thinking and reevaluate this friendship because I don't like the person he's becoming. His dad is a bus driver and his mother a retired teacher. They are lovely, humble, down-to-earth people. I think they've done the right thing cutting him off. I know they're both struggling financially, so it's not fair for their son to leech off them. His mother even had to go back to work doing some tutoring in order to make some extra money to be able to support my friend. I'd be so ashamed if I made my 70-year-old mother go back to work just so I could be sitting at home dreaming of landing the perfect job while actively dying to get one. Anyway, I'm rambling. Sorry, I'm just so mad. My wife says it's time to cut the cord and distance ourselves from him. I think she might be right. Edit. A yellow star has appeared next to my name. Does this mean I'm the sheriff now? My family tried to force an arranged marriage for business. I eloped. Now they're furious because I just sent them my wedding photo. I'm Zara, and I've been dating Logan for nearly 2 years. We met at our friend Andre's monthly game night, one of those informal get-togethers when everyone brings dollar store munchies and spends hours playing board games. My parents are traditional, not the wealthy sort of traditional with vacation houses and country club memberships, but the kind where dad works extra hours at his job and mom saves every penny at the grocery store. They've always had a family comes first attitude, which usually means whatever dad says goes. Logan and I have been keeping our relationship quiet around my family, not exactly hiding it, but not making a big issue either. He attends occasional family gatherings, delivers flowers to my mother, which she angrily places in the kitchen rather than the living room, and does his best to talk sports with my father, who usually simply grunts in response. Yesterday, I attended our customary Sunday supper. Everything appeared normal. Mom was preparing her famous pot roast, which she extended for the entire week. Dad was watching TV, and my sister Vera was texting on the couch. Then I observed that there were extra places arranged at the table. Who else is coming? I inquired while assisting Mom with the salad. Oh, Warren and Dexter are joining us, she replied. Warren is Dad's best friend from high school, and they work together. I scarcely know his son Dexter, other than he is 27 and also works with them. Dinner began normally enough. Warren arrived with Dexter, who was dressed in a button-up shirt still creased from the store. My mother kept offering him the nicest cuts of meat while giving me strange, meaningful glances. Vera kept kicking me beneath the table while enlarging her eyes, as if she knew something I didn't. Then, between the pot roast and Mom's box mix brownies, my father cleared his throat. "Zara, Warren and I have been talking." I immediately felt a strange sensation in my gut, like if something horrible was about to happen. "Dexter here is ready to settle down," Warren announced, beaming like he'd won the lotto. And we thought, what better match than our two families coming together? I almost choked on my water. "What?" "It makes sense," my father said, not looking at me. "Warren and I are expanding the business, and Dexter will eventually take over his father's role. You two would make a good match." I sat there, my fork frozen halfway to my mouth, as Dexter stared at his plate, looking about as relaxed as I was. The brownie in my mouth turned into sawdust. "I'm dating Logan," I admitted, confirming what everyone at the table already knew. My mother waved her hand dismissively. "Oh honey, that's just a young girl's fancy. We're talking about your future here." "Your mother's right," Dad added. "Logan's a nice enough kid, but he's not going anywhere. Dexter here has a real future in the business." I looked at Dexter, who was still fixated on his brownie. He hadn't spoken anything in the entire time. Warren was smirking as if he had just solved global hunger, and my parents were staring at me expectantly. "This is insane," I stated. "I'm not marrying Dexter. I love Logan." My father's face got somewhat purple. "This isn't about love, Zara. This is about family and the future." As I walked towards the door, I hear my father say, "You have until the end of the month to end things with that boy. We're announcing the engagement at Warren's birthday party." I didn't say anything else. I simply grabbed my crossbody bag and left. Logan was already waiting in his car, just around the bend. We had planned to go to Walmart after supper to get some items for his apartment. I climbed inside the car, my hands shaking as I attempted to buckle my seatbelt. That was yesterday. Today, my phone has been flooded with texts from my mother about being rational and thinking about the family. Vera sent me a series of WTF texts, followed by cautions that Dad is serious about this. Even my cousin, Ophelia, called to see whether it was true. Logan and I remained up late last night in his tiny studio apartment, discussing what to do. We had actually planned to move in together when his lease expires next month. Nothing extravagant, just a little two-bedroom in the same building as his friend Andre. We've been saving money and keeping it quiet. Now I'm wondering if we should speed up those plans. I've silenced most of my family on my phone, but I can see the message count increasing. The only person I've responded to is Vera, who has promised not to tell anyone that I'm staying at Logan's tonight. I'm not sure what to do next. I adore my family, but this is insane, right? For example, the year is 2024, not 1825. Who even performs planned marriages anymore, especially for something as mundane as a business deal? I need advice. Logan is supportive, but says it's up to me. I just know one thing for certain: I will not marry Dexter, no matter what my father believes marriage will bring me. First update. First and foremost, I'd like to express my gratitude for the amazing response to my previous post. It's been 2 weeks since that bizarre Sunday dinner, and I'm writing this at 1 a.m., on Logan's couch, stress-eating dollar store cookies and trying to figure out how everything went so swiftly. Our water heater recently broke, and the landlord isn't responding to texts, so now seems like a good opportunity to update you all while I wait for the kettle to heat water for a sink shower. The day after my last post, I waited until my folks were at work before going home to fetch some necessities. I assumed I'd be in and out, but Vera was home ill from her community college studies. Between stuffing clothes into my duffel bag, she told me what I'd missed. It turns out that the entire thing is far trickier than I had anticipated. The truth emerged in parts. Warren's business is struggling, badly. Dad has also been anxious about money, as seen by the dripping kitchen faucet. This arranged marriage was more than simply some random traditional values thing. It was about merging enterprises. They want to leverage my father's contracts to protect Warren's company from falling under. Isn't it really romantic? Things became much more problematic when I realized that my parents had already paid a non-refundable deposit for a wedding location. They had scheduled it under the premise of Warren's birthday party, but it was clearly signed as an engagement celebration. My mother has been exhibiting the contract to everyone as proof that I cannot back out now. The location is a fancy converted barn that likely costs more than I earn in 3 months. Over the next 3 days, I received a continual stream of missed calls and emotional messages. My cousin Ophelia stopped by Logan's with some winter clothes she had borrowed and mentioned that my mother has been contacting everyone in the family, weeping about how I'm wasting my life. The family gossip mill is running overtime. Apparently, Dexter still lives in his parents' basement and spends the most of his time playing Fortnite. What a deal I'm missing out on. Work hasn't gone any better. My manager suddenly reduced my hours after my mother called the store, weeping about her troublesome daughter. I'm now rushing to get shift swaps just to cover my rent. Logan is coping with his own troubles. His car failed inspection, and the repairs would be more expensive than the car was worth. Our living situation is hard. Logan's studio apartment was not designed for two people. We're constantly walking over each other, and his downstairs neighbor continues complaining to the owner about the extra noise. My complete skincare routine is currently stored in the bathroom sink because there is literally no other place to put it. Last night, I discovered my mascara in the kitchen cupboard, next to the ramen noodles. That is the amount of organization we're dealing with here. The financial hardship is becoming real. Between my limited hours at work and unanticipated charges, who thought moving would necessitate so many random purchases? We are both feeling the squeeze. I started selling clothes on Poshmark to save money. Logan has been picking up odd gigs on TaskRabbit, but they barely cover the necessities. We've become specialists in extending groceries. Rice and beans have become close companions. The problem reached a new low when I ran into my folks at Walmart while discount shopping. What followed was a scene straight out of a lousy drama. Tears in the cereal aisle, allegations about family devotion, and vague threats about Warren selling to a major corporation. We just got our essentials and went, but Mom noticed the generic brand products in our cart and began crying even more about how I deserve better than this life. Today's new torment was learning that my parents have reportedly been saving for my wedding since I was born. Mom shared images of the wedding fund passbook, a not-so-subtle reminder of what I'm tossing away. The guilt trip included childhood images and a screenshot of current wedding venue prices. To make matters worse, our proposed flat fell through. The landlord decided to rent to his nephew instead, so we are back at square one. Logan's lease expires in 2 weeks, and finding an affordable place is proving more difficult than anticipated. His friend Andre gave us his spare room temporarily, but accepting feels like giving up, especially because Andre lives in his parents' garage and his mother still does his laundry. Logan has been extremely supportive, but I can tell he is also feeling the strain. Yesterday, I discovered him staring at ramen containers with a discouraged expression that wounded my heart slightly. The engagement of extended family members is the most problematic. My phone is constantly ringing with texts from relatives I rarely see, all experts on why I'm making a horrible mistake. Vera keeps me up to date on things at home. Dad appears to be considering removing me from his will, which would be more concerning if there was anything to inherit. When I find myself doubting, I glance at Logan, perhaps playing Wordle on his phone or humming while washing dishes, and no, I can't give in. We are not a business merger. We are people. This is our lives. Even if we're currently sharing a single bath towel because we neglected to grab mine during the Great Escape, we're taking it day by day, looking for apartments during lunch breaks, blocking new numbers as they appear, and figuring out our next move. We still have each other, even if our current date nights consist of comparing property ads over microwave ramen. Second update. Hello Reddit. Some of you may remember me from my earlier post about my parents attempting to arrange my marriage to my father's best friend's son Dexter. A lot has happened in the last week, and I'm writing this from a motel room that costs $45 a night, eating leftover pizza, and still wearing the $30 Amazon outfit. It wasn't the wedding I envisioned as a child, but honestly, it was perfect in its own unusual manner. The idea to elope occurred after I discovered that my parents had already begun sending out pre-engagement party invitations to the luxury farm site they had reserved. My sister Vera sent me a photograph of the invitation. They had already decided on my future wedding name and everything. That was the last straw. Logan and I had already discussed marriage, especially since we had been living together for a few weeks. One night, while eating a bowl of microwave mac and cheese and staring out the window at our neighbor's cat, we've named her Princess despite the fact that she's not ours, we just knew. We scheduled it for a random Tuesday, not because it was special, but because we both had the day off work and the courthouse was open. Logan's friend Andre, not my father's friend, thank God, agreed to be our witness. I purchased a modest white dress from Amazon that actually looked better in photos, and Logan wore his one excellent button-down shirt, the one without wrinkles. Everything that could have gone wrong on the morning of happened. The zipper on my dress became caught. Logan's automobile made that strange noise again and would not start. We had to take an Uber to the courts and divide the cost 3 ways with Andre because we were all penniless. The driver continued wondering why we were dressed up, and we simply explained that we had a court appointment. Technically correct, right? The ceremony itself lasted maybe 10 minutes. The clerk was having her lunch as she processed our paperwork, and there was a man in the corner feverishly filling out jury service forms. Not quite romantic, but we couldn't stop smiling like idiots. Andre took photos with his phone. Most of the pictures are blurry, but there's one decent one in which Logan and I are just looking at each other and laughing because I almost dropped the $12 ring we received. We celebrated at the diner around the corner, sharing a plate of fries and a milkshake because that was all we had left from our wedding budget. Andre insisted on paying for his own coffee, claiming it was a wedding gift to us. When the waitress found out we had recently married, she handed us a free pie. This was the first bit of wedding luck we got all day. Then came the hard part. Telling people. We decided to do it with a simple Instagram post, just one good photo Andre took, with a casual caption. So, we did a thing. Ophelia responded first, sending a stream of heart emoticons. Then Vera called, both laughing and weeping. She was thrilled for us, but concerned about the consequences. She was right to be. My mother saw the post while at the grocery store. I know this because she contacted me from the parking lot, sobbing so hard that the cart attendant inquired if she required assistance. She kept claiming she would never be able to attend church again. How could you do this to our family? How about the venue deposit? Dad's reply came through Vera. He reportedly tossed his phone across the room when he saw the post. Warren, his best friend, quickly drove over to their house. Surprisingly, Dexter liked our Instagram picture and remarked, "Congratulations," which most likely exacerbated the situation. The extended family's reaction has been mixed, shocked Facebook messages, angry texts, and a few quiet congrats. My cousin even included me in a TikTok about ungrateful children. Really mature. We're now staying at this motel because our apartment application is still being processed, and Logan's lease expired yesterday. The room smells like old cigarettes, and the Wi-Fi frequently fails, yet it's our first home as a married couple. We've been making the most of our time by watching weird YouTube videos on Logan's phone and eating inexpensive takeout. Then the wedding venue called. It turns out that my parents attempted to cancel my engagement party but still lost the money. They're supposedly telling everyone that I forced them to book it, which is an interesting take of events. Money is still scarce. We're both working extra shifts when we can, and I'm selling more items on Poshmark. The apartment we applied for is not fancy. It's a ground floor, 1 bedroom with an unusual layout and no dishwasher, but it would be ours. The leasing agency stated they will notify us by Friday. Vera has been our primary source of news from home. Mom seemed to have already redecorated my previous room, taking down all of my photos and everything. Dad is informing everyone at work that I am going through a phase. Warren's wife is constantly trying to set up a family gathering to fix things. The most unusual reaction came from Dexter himself. He sent me a DM claiming he's relieved because he can finally tell his father about his girlfriend. They've been dating for almost a year, and she's not only a streamer, but also a single mother. Warren would certainly not approve. Logan and I are taking things day by day. Sometimes I wake up in a panic about everything we've done. Logan occasionally makes me chuckle, such as when he attempted to cook ramen in our hotel room's coffee machine. I remember why I selected this. It is not ideal. But this is ours. Third update. Sometimes the truth arrives in the most unexpected ways. In my instance, it came from a stack of water-damaged papers I discovered while assisting Vera in cleaning out our flooded basement following last week's storm. The basement incident occurred when Vera asked for assistance. Mom and Dad were at a church function, and she was worried about water getting in. Logan and I drove there to help preserve whatever we could. While shifting boxes to a higher level, I discovered Dad's old filing cabinet had turned over, spilling documents everywhere, most of which were drenched. As we went over what may be saved, I noticed something interesting. Loan papers. There are a lot of them. All with Warren's signature and my father as guarantee. The dates went back years. Small loans at first. Then larger ones. The most recent? From shortly before the whole marriage disaster began. Some had final notice stamps. Others had payment plans with missing checkmarks. It was like seeing a chronology of Warren's firm gradually falling. But this is when things get crazy. Mixed up with the loan papers were printed correspondence between Dad and a large development company. They wanted to buy both businesses, Dad's and Warren's, but only as a package deal. The offer was genuinely reasonable, enough to cover all of the debts and then some. Is there a catch? They sought confirmation of consistent succession planning, Essentially, they would not buy until they were confident that the businesses would remain together in the long run. That's where Dexter and I stepped in. We were the ideal solution for demonstrating that the businesses will continue to be controlled by families for many years. While we were still digesting this, Vera discovered other papers. Warren had been disguising how horrible things were from everyone, including his own wife. He had mortgaged their home twice without informing her. My father had co-signed everything, probably hoping Warren would turn things around soon. Then came the real kicker, a draft contract dated shortly before the whole marriage proposal saga. Warren had already begun selling off equipment to make payments. Dad was about to lose all he had worked for over 20 years because he trusted his best friend. I photographed everything before the water destroyed it totally and forwarded them to Dexter. He deserved to know. How did he respond? Well, that explains the rush. Apparently, his father had been pressuring him to settle down for months, even attempting to break up with his girlfriend. The next day, Ophelia came over to our flat with housewarming ramen, because that's what we do now. She had more tea. Warren's wife learned about the second mortgage and moved in with her sister. Dexter finally told everyone about his girlfriend and her child, then moved in with them. Warren? He's staying with his brother, presumably to give his wife some space. However, she most likely changed the locks. Dad still won't speak to me directly, but he started asking Vera strange questions about my new home. If I eat enough? That type of thing. Mom went from angry Facebook rants to sharing missing my daughter memes, which I suppose is an improvement. Yesterday, Warren texted me. Only 2 words. I'm sorry. I have not yet responded. Not sure if I will. Logan has been incredible during all of this. He doesn't say much about it, just embraces me when I need it and cracks bad jokes when I get too serious. Last night, he attempted to lighten the situation by suggesting that we start our own business. But something simple, he replied. Maybe selling those little hats for cats online. We are doing okay. The apartment is slowly coming together. We discovered an actual bed frame on Facebook Marketplace yesterday. Our upstairs neighbor's child practices trumpet at 7 a.m. every day, but we're getting accustomed to it. I'm picking up extra shifts at work, and Logan has started doing food delivery on weekends. It isn't flashy, but the bills are being paid. Vera claims Dad has been spending a lot of time in his garage lately. Probably trying to decide what to do next. When the deal failed, the development business withdrew its offer. She overheard Mom telling a friend on the phone that they might have to sell their house, which they'd lived in since before I was born. Part of me feels guilty, even though I know it's not my fault. Another part is furious that they attempted to utilize my life to solve their business difficulties. Mostly, I'm simply tired of the whole affair. Last update. I wasn't planning on posting again, but I just had the most weird Thanksgiving experience, and I thought you'd be interested in hearing how things turned out after the whole arranged marriage drama. First and foremost, Logan and I are still in our small apartment. We now have a solid bed frame. Goodbye, air mattress. The neighbor's son has progressed from trumpet to drums. Progress. What's the upside? We discovered that our other neighbor works at a furniture outlet, so we got a slightly damaged couch for almost nothing. It has a strange stain that resembles Danny DeVito if you squint, but it's comfortable. The biggest alteration occurred roughly 2 months ago. Mom began sending strange thinking of you texts, generally late at night while she was viewing weeping videos on Facebook. She then asked if we could meet for coffee. I agreed, mainly because I was tired of avoiding her at the grocery store. We met in the cafe where Logan and I celebrated our wedding reception. She cried into her coffee. I nervously stirred the tea. And somehow we ended up having a real chat. It turns out that Dad's business survived. Barely. They needed to shrink, sell some equipment, and relocate to a smaller office. Nonetheless, they are getting by. Warren's company wasn't as fortunate. Speaking of Warren, he and his wife have formally separated. Finally, she received the house. Remember those secret mortgages? He's still living with his brother, who has apparently begun charging him rent. Dexter is doing pretty well. He moved in with his fiancée and her child, started broadcasting on Twitch, and now makes a respectable living doing so. His mother informed my mother that he appears happier than he has been in years. He and Logan occasionally play games together. Which is strange. But that was kind of wonderful. Dad took a while to come around. The breakthrough occurred when our automobile broke down again. This item is currently held together by hope and duct tape. Logan was fixing it in the apartment parking lot when Dad arrived. Vera mentioned it to Mom, who then mentioned it to Dad. He didn't speak much. I just started assisting with the car. Now they have this strange habit of texting each other car maintenance videos. Dad still rarely speaks to me personally, But he will give Logan links to vehicle components for sale. Baby steps, I suppose. Thanksgiving was the real test. Mom had been hinting for weeks that we should visit. I was concerned, but Logan explained that free food is free food. We were still on a tight budget, so we went. It was awkward. South awkward. Aunt Alice continued to make sharp remarks about unconventional life choices. Uncle Bob pretended we weren't present. However, Vera and Ophelia handled the situation admirably. Mom actually hung our wedding photo on the mantel, right next to that terrible school picture of me from 7th grade with the braces and butterfly clips. What about the surprise guest? Warren's ex-wife. Apparently, she and Mom are still friends. She brought this delicious sweet potato casserole and spent the majority of supper telling everyone about her journey of self-discovery and new pastime. Dad seemed to want to dissolve into his mashed potatoes. What's the true highlight? Cousin Andre, not Logan's pal Andre, keep up, has announced his engagement. Everyone quickly began arranging this massive wedding, discussing venues, flowers, and other details. Mom caught my eye across the table and winked. Progress. Our flat is still small, but we have made it home. The ring finally stained my finger green, but I actually enjoyed it. It fits our aesthetic. Logan's car is still making that noise, but we are saving money for a new one. Slowly. Very slow. Work is work. Nothing spectacular, but we are both getting by. Logan began taking online computer science courses. I'm thinking about it too. But for now, I'm just trying to pick up more shifts wherever I can. Vera comes over frequently, typically with food from Mom. I believe she occasionally acts as Mom's spy, reporting back on whether our apartment is clean or if we are eating vegetables. But she also spreads rumors about Warren and Dexter. Apparently, Dexter's girlfriend's child now addresses him as Papa. Life is not perfect, but we are getting there.